I think we might be able to start streaming. I think we might be
yeah?
streaming. I think we.
Yeah.
I think we've done it somehow by doing nothing.
Hell yeah! Just a quick restart.
Yeah, I think this is live. Hopefully, like everything is actually set up properly.
Let's see.
Because after all of that, there's a good chance something's just reset itself, and now it's all fucked. But
I can see that you're live.
excellent. Has it got the thumbnail and everything? Is that also existing?
Let me check.
Because I did set all that up, and I've just
Yeah.
connected to that.
You've got it all set up. Yeah.
Excellent news. Well, that was after all that time of you setting up your dock and me being like, "Oh, it's fine, everything's set up, ready to go," and then it was very much not ready to go. Okay, we'll just wait for people to potentially join. It says there's no viewers at the moment, so
it's all right. I'll link the stream.
Thank you.
No problem.
I have a control panel. Yeah. Okay, well, it still doesn't work. I'm gonna. Oh no, shit! It's working now.
Hell yeah!
What a time to be alive. It does nothing other than show me that there is one person watching, and I assume that is you.
That's me. That shit's me, innit?
I can insert an ad for no reason.
Just click a button and play a billion ads one after another. Get your bag.
Just you. You're subject to a million ads. So, you know what? The thumbnail wasn't too bad for like 2 minutes work.
Thumbnail's pretty decent, yeah.
It does look a little bit like basic PowerPoint presentation sort of layout.
I think it looks fine. It looks pretty decent.
I was just like, I'm tired. I'm just gonna very quickly throw something together. It's fine. It'll do. Who was it who streamed yesterday? That was Common Boy and Zethus? Zephus? No, Zephus.
Common Boy, yeah.
Was Zephus?
And then
okay.
Matt was on the VDL channel, yeah.
Okay. I was like, I don't fully remember Matt being there, but he says he was there. So I got
was
confused.
Like the one he was in control of the channel, I think. Like the
okay. He was the professional behind it, unlike myself.
The professional.
I don't even know what happened because I restarted OBS as well, and it said it crashed immediately. So like, what if I just start up in safe mode and everything worked fine? So I don't.
Fuck yeah.
Apparently, being safe is the way.
Remember, kids, be safe. Do you want to try streaming your screens to me on Discord as well?
I can certainly try.
Yeah,
if
give it a try.
If this crashes everything, sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, looks fine.
Looks
perfect.
Fine. Excellent.
You're all set to go.
I say.
I'll drop it in.
Everyone got drinks. Everyone got food. I got mini eggs.
Oh, mini eggs, the best drink.
Liquid eggs.
Liquid eggs. Oh god.
Technically, eggs are liquid though. Not those kind of eggs.
I suppose.
I just enjoy a beverage of just raw egg.
Oh, delicious. Got to get that protein. Right, welcome in, Matt. We're of course you're number one in our hearts.
Always. Is the volumes okay? Because I've messed up just about everything else. The volumes would just kind of tip it all off. Like that would just really be the last thing.
For what it's worth, it sounded okay when I was checking.
Okay, now time for me to put some music in the background. So
blow our eardrums out. Let's go.
Can watch a Football Manager stream. Just have a Football Manager stream in the background.
Fuck yeah, let's go. Football Manager and Pokemon Draft League, hand in hand.
See, chill.
Welcome in, AP. Thanks for popping in. We're gonna roast some drafts and probably roast some people even harder.
Oh, that's probably quite loud. Let me turn that down. Let me know if the music is too loud, too quiet.
I currently cannot hear any music.
It is showing us coming through. It is quite quiet, actually. That's now too loud.
I can hear it now.
No. Right. I don't know how much of a delay there is as to whether or not you said that when volume was lower, and now I've just killed everyone.
Lower. I think it's fine.
I'll turn it down a little bit, and yeah, hopefully that'll be fine.
Yeah, this is just what happens in like every stream ever, right? There's always like 5-10 minutes at the start where we're all like, oh, the music needs to be lower or louder, or I can't hear this.
Trying so hard to get everything right, and then you start the stream and it turns out everything is wrong.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I hadn't streamed with OBS at all prior to this. I always used XSplit, and all my settings were perfect there, and changing over everything just went wrong. So, but
it's just the way. Welcome in, Rocky. Good to have you here. I'm excited to see the new PRs. That team, that league looks fucking silly. It looks silly, as in like the drafts look cracked there.
Excuse my ignorance, but is Mew like the top showdown division?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. I need to actually look at the drafts in other divisions. I've been slacking.
Yeah, the other divisions look crazy, and they finished theirs just as quickly as we finished ours.
I did 2 drafts back to back. And I can't remember which one was the quick one and which one was not the quick one.
This one was the quick one.
I just know that every time it got to Leo, there was like an hour of Leo melting. Like literally, it's like, don't pick, please. I'm not ready.
Leo having an absolute meltdown. Oh god.
Yeah, Mew is the highest.
Good to have you here.
Indeed.
Yeah, we play tomorrow. Gonna be a fun time.
Oh, are you doing VDL tomorrow?
Yes, we're playing our week 1 tomorrow.
I'm playing Tom on Thursday.
Ooh,
I think it's his Friday. Stupid, upside down time zones.
I love Tom to pieces. Very nice guy, and he's very willing to try and schedule. But fuck me, scheduling with Australians is so difficult.
It is. Like, even trying to schedule a mock, granted most of it was my own sleeping pattern that was the issue, but just scheduling a mock with Trav was bad enough. It took us like a week to get that done.
Yeah. Trav's, it's difficult when they're on the exact opposite time to you. Like, it's weird sometimes, but being on night shift actually helps me get my games done on time with certain people, because I can play after I finish, you know?
I was going to say, like, sometimes it's just, like, if you work later shifts, it actually works out quite nicely, because...
Oh, yeah.
People just happen to be around, especially in American time zones.
Absolutely, yeah. Alright, time to do the typical YouTuber streamer thing. Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure we're liking the stream, you know, give us a cheeky like and a sub, you know, do all of the good YouTubery things, while I get Amber to pay me for the plug. Yep,
the stream... revenue is on its way to you, all 3p of it.
Oh, that's 3p more than last time.
I will be right back, because in the stress of setting up the stream, I now need the toilet, so I'll be 1 second, and then once I'm back, we'll get straight into actually doing the stream.
Lovely. Well, I'll keep the ladies and gentlemen entertained,
and I will try not to mute the wrong thing. I will mute you, not me. Wait, no, the other way around.
So how are we all doing today? I see the new division's PRs. I've seen the little snippet that you've posted, Roki. They're looking nice and tasty. Not going to spoil anything, of course, but yeah, they're looking pretty good. As soon as Amber returns, we shall get cracking and start roasting everyone to pieces. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very fun. I'll say this again when Amber's back. But the one thing that I want to stress is that a lot of these positions and a lot of the criticisms that we're going to have with some of these drafts are not due to the coach specifically. They are just because this draft board made it so that it was, and this isn't even a criticism of the draft board either, but it made it so that filling every possible thing you needed in a draft was so difficult. I don't even blame, the coaches really for, potentially having mistakes in their drafts. So please don't take it personally if we say that a draft is not good, because we know that you probably didn't, make the mistakes or have the holes there that you have because of your own choices. I think AP, the one yesterday, I think the one that offended me the most was putting Amber at I think third bottom. That was the one that shocked me the most. Because that one was, especially considering, I think it was, and we'll get more into it, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it was, I think the value for offense was way too low. Or I think it was the value for defense on the stream I personally felt was way too low, but that's the good thing about power rankings, right? It's all completely subjective, and one person's opinion is totally different from another, but they both have valid points, right? So it's going to be interesting comparing this one to the other one. I think that's it. All right, catch you in a bit, Matt. Hopefully you can drop in when you have a moment. But yeah, thanks for showing up at the start. And this will be uploaded as well, straight afterwards. So if you aren't able to stick around for the full thing, make sure that you, you'll be able to have a look afterwards on YouTube and, check out the rankings that you're interested for. So yeah, this will all be over there. But yeah, I think on the whole, I thought yesterday's power rankings were pretty interesting because there were a few points that were raised regarding a certain drafts. Matt's in particular was one that I thought you guys raised some very valid points for. It's not the same place that we would have put it, but I think, there were definitely some very good points raised that myself and Amber might not necessarily have taken into consideration. So yeah, I think these power rankings are really interesting, and you learn a lot from them. It's also an exercise in seeing how well you personally do at analyzing teams. So it's good for flexing the old draft league muscles. Yep, no worries, AP. If you end up going underground, yeah, we'll just curse you in the afterlife. So yeah. You're all good. Yeah, Josh, I've had people place me dead last in power rankings before, but as you say, that completely puts a fire under your ass, right? It makes it so that you really want to try and prove everyone wrong. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how the table compares to where we put people in these power rankings. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. I've just seen your DM as well, Josh. Yeah, appreciate it, mate. Yeah, hope you're all having a good day. Hope you've all got some beverages, and I hope that transport isn't completely crowded. I hope you've got a seat. I hope you're not having to stand the whole time. And a reminder, of course, make sure you're staying hydrated. Yeah, I think Tom has a habit of just drafting really competent teams. I really like the way Tom drafts because he always finds a way to pivot even when things go wrong, He always finds a way to pivot into, a completely different style of draft and always comes out with something really good. And from what I've seen, I've played Tom 3 times. He's a very versatile player, so he can completely switch up his play style depending on who he's playing.
Hello, I'm back.
Welcome back. Drinking hot water. Oh dear.
What happened whilst I was away? Why are we drinking hot water?
I just asked everyone if they're drinking things. Making sure they're staying hydrated. And apparently AP's drinking hot water. Wonderful.
Preparing their scolds.
Preparing their scolds for later. Gotta get that 30% burn.
So, we should probably quickly just, for those, I'm pretty sure everyone who's in stream at the moment is in VDL in some capacity, but for anyone who isn't, it's a lower tier league. There was 70 points to draft 10 mons, exactly 10. Couldn't be any more, any less. And 2 of those mons had to be Terra captains, and they had to amount to 7 points.
Mm-hmm.
There was also a rule where only 1 Pokemon on your team can hold an Eviolite in a game, so that is something else to just take into the equation when looking at these teams. Because there's a couple of teams that definitely have more than 1 Pokemon that wants to hold Eviolite, and it might affect their score a little bit. But
yes, absolutely.
We were very kind of mathematical, very methodical with our with our scoring. Yours is out of 110, and mine is out of 200 because I initially did it out of 110, and I was like, "There's more. Like I can see more." So there was, I added a few more extra columns and stuff. And the way we were going to do this is Alex's is on the left side. Alex's onesie, for anyone who doesn't know.
That's me.
And mine is on the right. We will go through from our own 16 up to 1, and discuss why we think this team is where it is, essentially. If you're unfamiliar with the power rankings as a whole. And I will say this was really close, especially towards the top. There was the scores were really similar, and it came down to 0.5 in some places.
Yes, it did. One thing I would like to stress as well, I said it while you weren't here, Amber, but I think some of the points, some of the issues we're going to bring up with some of the drafts aren't necessarily player controlled, if you know what I mean. Sometimes we found that the draft board was just that difficult to get value out of, especially towards the latter half, that some of the issues that we're going to bring up aren't necessarily caused by the player drafting badly. It's just the situation they were forced into. So it's nothing personal towards your own personal drafting preferences. And if you get insulted, just take a look at the mirror, I guess.
Essentially, every round was playing a 1v1 on Rust, is what I said. With everybody, because there was just snipes everywhere. It was absolutely. Literally, it was in one round you would have the entirety of your plan gone. You plan out next absolutely. 3 picks, all 3 would just go. So a lot of the time, you kind of had to make do with what the next thing was, and there's definitely some gaps in a few of these teams, some more so than others, and we might be a little bit harsh, I guess, on some teams, but that's probably just going to be me because I'm a bit of a dickhead.
It's all right. We're both dickheads. So, dickhead draft league, the DDL.
But if you want a slightly less dickheadish approach, then you can go and watch the VOD from Zephyus and Zephus.
I think it's Zethus and Common Boy.
And Common Boy, yeah. They streamed over on the VDL channel on Twitch. I don't have the link to it.
I can find it.
Thank you. Yeah, my admin is doing that right now.
That's me.
This is why you get that 3p. It's Poncho and Common. Okay.
Oh, it's Poncho. Gotcha. Apologies. Yeah, Poncho and Common. They did a very good job. I was there for quite a lot of it yesterday, and I thought that it was a really well put together thing with the best transitions I've ever seen.
How did I not see these transitions? I know
they were PowerPoint. It was excellent.
I kind of just skipped through a little bit, but no, that sounds fantastic.
It was awesome. Honestly, it was awesome.
We do not have the same presentation here. This is going to be a very boring presentation in comparison.
There we are. I've dropped the link in. Probably get flagged by mods or something, but yeah.
It hasn't even come up yet, so there's a chance it's already been yeeted. So
cool.
But
welcome in, Arch. Didn't see you there. I think we're ready to get started. Are you?
I'm ready. Should we go for our number 16s?
Yeah, let's go for our number 16.
We both had the same number 16, I believe, and that is Matt and the Las Vegas Fright. There was one team had to be at the bottom.
Yes.
As Alex hasn't put his one on, that's very I'm just going to do it for him.
Oh, do I have to do it myself?
You're going to have to. I'm not paying you the big bucks for nothing, okay?
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, this team. Unfortunately, somebody has to be at the bottom, and unfortunately, this team was quite a way behind on terms of like the overall points. And I think there's some pretty major weaknesses on this team, and nothing to patch it up.
Yes.
I
think when you look through the point totals, unfortunately, there's quite a bit that's lower that's bringing it down. I want to talk about the positives first. I think that this team can...
No, it's all negative.
All negative, no. Yeah, I think that this team can wall break incredibly well. I think Staraptor, Magmortar, Lycanroc, they're all fantastic mons. I think that they can synergize really well. I think the defensive core of Weezing and Goodra, and potentially even Duraludon there as well, are going to do quite nice defensive work there. But my problem here, unfortunately, the biggest problem, the thing that pisses me off, and it's not even necessarily Matt's fault, because it's the rules that dictated this, but you've got 5 points left over, right? Matt didn't spend the entire budget, spent 65 points. They've got a 2-point Terra Electric, and Electros is 7 points. I know you needed the second Terra Captain, but surely something could have been swapped around somewhere to give you a few more points. Oh, God.
I think
it's my OCD going crazy.
The Samurott probably could have been a 2-point Water Terra Captain. I think something like a Wartortle might have been in 2 points. And like Terra Wartortle with Shell Smash is not too bad. But it means you have an Electros instead of an Electric. And I know that some people stand by Electric. But it just feels like there was a few pieces. This is just like a few pieces away from being a good team. Like Samurott, I think, is very much a weak link. Just as a Pokemon, I don't think it's particularly great.
Nah, me neither.
And my biggest issue with this team is you auto lose to an offensive fairy, because a lot of the fairies are especially offensive, and your checks that are going to be Magmortar and Weezing doesn't really want to be running Spadef every week. You might end up having to run Spadef every week, and Weezing is very easily checked by quite a few types. Granted, it's got great utility, but it's not necessarily going to be... It's not going to be able to break anything. It may not even be able to break the fairy type. Having both Duraludon and Goodra on a team when you've already got a fairy weakness, like your Steel doesn't resist fairy, it's kind of just compounding the same problem, and there was quite a few types on this team that I think weren't picked up. And instead there was Double Dragon, which just doesn't really work. And as much as I like the offensive, like Lycanroc Terra, I really like that. That's awesome. Great Terra. Maybe a defensive Terra would have gone better in that spot. But
yeah, I put a note on mine in regards to that, saying that I do agree with you on there. The Terra Caps are awesome. I think Lycanroc Terra is wonderful, and I think there's a really decent game plan here where you can just go wall break every week into Lycanroc carry. But the problem there, as you pointed out, is that a defensive Terra here picks up so many of the gaps here, because like as you say, you don't really have any fairy resistance. Magmortar kind of has to be forced to come every week as well, and fire type isn't good into every single matchup, so picking something that's a little bit bulkier that you can patch some of the gaps up with really would have gone a long way. And in a sense, Electric can do that, but it's also a 2-point Terra Captain, and you can't bring that alongside the Lycanroc. So yeah, I think that this team can function. I'm not saying it's like bad or anything per se. I just think that the holes in it do feel a little bit more exploitable. And if you're forced to run Electric as Terra every week, then you're not getting the most out of Lycanroc, for example, you know?
Yeah. And also, I think with the offense, Staraptor is obviously going to hit really hard, but a lot of Staraptor's value is killing itself. So, yes. Like, you got your one main offensive piece is going to be dead probably in about 2 or 3 turns. Yes. And then Lycanroc, again, great Terra offensively, will do a lot of damage. Outside of that, like the special offense, you mentioned like Magmortar probably does come most weeks. That is kind of the special offense on this team. Duraludon also has good special, but it kind of also really wants the Eviolite. That's like the one big issue with Duraludon is without it, it dies to a light breeze on the special side.
Yeah, it's granted, not great, especially defensively.
You could run Assault Vest, but then you're not able to run things like Raw, Stealth Rock, or T-Wave, things that Duraludon really excels at. And then Goodra kind of gives you like physical and special, but doesn't really excel at either. So it's like the offense was like okay. I felt like the defense score really got brought down just by the fact that like fairy types are going to just blast through this team.
Yes, they are. And the issue as well is that there's we both pointed out this team has literally 2 ways of restoring its own health. That's Pain Split on Weezing and Strength Sap on Bramblegast. So
yeah,
you know, if Staraptor's breaking itself to try and, you know, punch holes in the other team, you've got no way of healing it back up for repeated hits. Or if you get a bad prediction, you switch it in on, you know, a suspected Earthquake and it goes down early, it could be difficult to punch holes through. That being said, Matt's a good player. I like Matt a lot. And I think that, you know, if anyone's going to be able to pilot this, I think he could. Someone had to go last.
Yeah. I think that every team is going to have holes. Like, literally every team, I think, when I looked at it, nobody scored, like, perfect on anything. Because it was, like, where there were snipes everywhere, it was just kind of a case of, well, you miss out on something. Because there's no way you can get everything, especially in a low tier with the restrictions of 10 Mons and 2 Terra Captains. Like, if there wasn't restrictions, Terra Captains, Electric could be Electros, for example, and that would certainly make the team better as a whole. But yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head on like the weakest point in terms of this team defensively probably is going to be the lack of recovery, because both Strength Sap is a fantastic recovery move. It is on Bramblegast, which doesn't have the most longevity, and Pain Split is not reliable in any way.
No, it's not. And I think Matt's just put a very good point in the chat there, saying, if anything, it's going to be fun. And as someone who's used Staraptor and Magmortar together, they are very fun to use. They are very fun mons. So yeah, you're going to have a lot of fun with this one, Matt. And you know, you'll get some wins. I don't think anyone's going to go 0-8 or 0-9 this season. I think that everyone's going to have something going on. So yeah, you'll get some wins. You might sneak playoffs. You might surprise us all, and I look forward to seeing what you do with it.
I also think that like because of the like statistically that it's scored low, it makes it look a lot worse than it actually is. But this team is not that far behind the next team. It's not as much of a gulf as the points make it seem. It's just a lack of like multiple utility things, and that really brought the score right down.
Yes, unfortunately it did.
But moving on to our number 15s, and I think this is the first one we have a 2 different 15s. As I have Nightle and Deathbelly Houndooms, and you have...
Who did I have? I can't remember. One moment. Who did I have at number 2? I had...
Get your notepad up.
Get me notepad up. I had Common Boy. And the Salt Lake Garganicals at mine.
There we go.
There we go. See, I told you this is a very scuffed stream. We'll sort it.
It always was going to be. So yeah, like you can already see, like the next team, Matt's team scored 93.5 on mine, and then this team's got 108. I do not feel like there's that much of a gap.
No, I don't think so either. I think we'll start with your one, and we'll move on to Common Boy a little bit later.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to just like discuss the teams from my end as we go, and then
I'll discuss your one. So
okay.
Yeah, if you want to start us off.
So this team on paper, I actually had it initially last before I really even looked at anything else, like any kind of what kind of utility it has and all that sort of thing. Because on paper, this team has a lot of holes. One of the main things that I saw when like immediately come to mind is you got 4 Mons down here that are NFE. Both Knucklestack and Tinkertuff really do want to hold Eviolite. They don't function really nearly as well without it. Haunter doesn't need it. but certainly if it wants to be Nasty Plot, it does need it. And same for Hisuian Sneasel, it doesn't need to be Eviolite, but if it wants to be Swords Dance, it does need it. Because it will die. Both of them are just so frail without the Eviolite, they will just fall over. And then the defensive core of Umbreon, Rotom Heat, Quagsire, Toedscruel is fine, but none of them cover each other's weaknesses. Like, there's a whole bunch of, like, mons in isolation are good. When you look at, like, oh, the fighting resist on this team is Yanmega. So, Umbreon, like, yes, you can switch Umbreon in on a lot of things, but then you're switching in on a fighting type, Yanmega's not going to be able to appreciate that particularly. Any kind of coverage will do 50%. If you have your Quagsire, which is, by the way, the only water resist on this entire team.
Granted, it's a good resist.
It's a good resist. It's good because it's potentially immunity, but it's only a resist if it's water absorb. So it basically is forced to run water absorb every week. It can't be unaware if there's like even a reasonably good water type, because the water type is going to come against his team every time. And so and then the grass switch in is Rotom Heat, which is kind of fine, but it does kind of force Rotom into that defensive role a lot more than maybe a Nasty Plot role that it wants to run in low tier much more often. So I kind of found that a lot of the defensive pieces didn't synergize very well. The offense is fine, like Chinchino, Yanmega. Rotom Heat offensively is going to be pretty solid, and even like Terra Haunter is a pretty solid offensive low tier Terra.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like the Terra Haunter here.
I really do not rate Hisuian Sneasel, just me, but like I said this to you prior to the stream, like regular Sneasel is budget Weavile, it does the exact same thing. Hisuian Sneasel is budget Toxicroak with worse abilities and a bit faster, because it doesn't really do what Sneasler does in pivoting around. It doesn't get U-turn, it doesn't have the Unburden, so it can't even run like a Focus Sash Unburden set to try and take advantage of its frailty. So it's kind of just forced to run either Choice Band or Life Orb or Choice Scarf, and at that point, like, Choice Scarf lacks the strength. Like, it doesn't break anything as a Choice Scarfer, and if it's Life Orb or Choice Band, if it doesn't pick up a KO, it's just die.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of those problems. I think the reason that I had it slightly higher is just because the defensive potential for this team is quite good. Yeah, it's got its holes, but there are some kind of blanket checks to things. For example, you mentioned that water type is quite good into this team, and I agree. However, special waters kind of just get blanked by Umbreon. I think that the offense was the main problem for me for the Night Wars team. I think my problem with it is you've got all of these great defensive pieces, and I think they're wonderful. I think that they can work together. I think you've got a lot of potential for toxic spike stalling. You've got a lot of...
I mean, this is utility of the team. Like, Hazard's fucking out the ass.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Hazard are awesome on this team. But the problem is, you're not going to be able to break for Chinchino and Sneasel if you're having to run Boots Yanmega every week, because Toedscruel's not really that good at being a spinner. At least I don't think it is. Yeah, it's got decent stats, but Yanmega basically is forced to be the breaker almost every week here, because Tinted Lens Bug Buzz is, granted, crazy, and Specs Tinted Lens Bug Buzz is awesome, but if you're forced to bring Yanmega every week to try and break, if Yanmega, if it goes wrong, that's your only breaker, and it's going to struggle to do the work properly for you. I think there's a lot of good in this team. I think you mentioned about the 4 Eviolites as well. I think that's a big thing that's going to hold it back, because you can't bring Knackle Stack, Tinkertuff, Haunter, and Sneasel to the same game. You can't bring... Well, you can bring maybe 2 of them, but you have to bring one of Knackle Stack and Tinkertuff, or one of Sneasel and Haunter. And as you say, you can't run the Swords Dance and Nasty Plot sets. And Haunter with Terra does kind of want to do Nasty Plot sets, so it has a bit more of a use case for the whole Eviolite situation.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a salvageable team in here. I think another Warbreaker and a little bit more type stuff would have been, a little bit more type synergy would have gone a long way for that team.
Yeah, I think it's another team that's quite close, and I think it's also probably quite difficult to make the changes now where there is no, like, a dragon type on this team would help with quite a few of the weaknesses. The Tinkertuff being the fairy and the steel on this team, whilst also wanting to be one of the Eviolite mons, so it's covering a lot of the weaknesses on this team, but it's also taking up that Knuckle Stack's Eviolite spot, and I think Knuckle Stack as a again as like a Terra Captain is pretty damn good. Like it's
solid.
It's a very solid mon, but it does want that Eviolite. It can't kind of function without it particularly well. So yeah, the Tinkertuff is a great pick in isolation because it gives a lot of good resist for this team, and I think if there's one thing this team is fine against is going to be ground types.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've got like 4 resistances and 2 immunities, so you know it's looking, well, 3 immunities because you've got Yam Mega as well.
It's like in isolation a lot of these mons are good. Like I think Umbreon down here is probably going to be very difficult to break. I think Rotom Heat is actually pretty solid. I do like Quagsire and Chinchino. Absolutely fine. Chinchino also does get tidy up, so there is a fast hazard removal option should they want it. However, I remember in notes, which I didn't keep, that Chinchino is very frail, and if it's going to tidy up, it's probably dying in exchange. And Toedscruel is taunt bait. Like, this team is very taunt bait. Because Umbreon, Quagsire, and Toedscruel, a lot of what they want to do, and a lot of the way they get value on this team, is through passive moves, be it Toxic, like setting up hazards, sporing things. A taunt just shuts down like half the team. So
yeah,
realistically, I think what you probably need is to maybe trade out one of those mons that are going to get taunted and bring in something that's maybe like a fast spiker that's got some offense or something along those lines. And this team is like it's so close to moving up in the power rankings. It's just there's a few things, mainly with the offense and a little bit of defensive synergy, that bring it right down.
I think another thing to mention is as well it kind of just plays testament to how interesting the rules for the draft were. Because, you know, as we've mentioned before, Eviolite problem, the whole Terra problem. You know, there's a lot here that kind of restricted the draft, and I don't even necessarily blame Nightor for having these issues. So I know Nightor's got some. They've got some trades in mind. He's cooking, and I think he's gonna absolutely, you know, fix this team. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it.
Like I say, there's some pieces here that are really like could make for a very good team. I do think like the combination of Rotom Heat, Umbreon, Yam Mega at the very least, if they stick around, really, really good. Yam Mega is terrifying down here.
Oh, so, God, yeah, that thing's just going to click buttons and things are going to drop.
I think my last point is, and I just remembered this because I remember writing it down, is that you have very little in terms of speed, because Chinchino and Hisuian Sneasel at 115. The next speed tier is realistically Haunter. I know Toedscruel is 100 and Haunter's 95.
Haunter and Yan Mega are both at 95.
Yeah, there's a big old gap there, and also like in terms of like boosting speed, it is really just Chinchino and Yam Mega that are able to do so, and Yam Mega is through its own ability.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. And another thing as well, Yam Mega is only really going to ever want to run Tinted Lens on this team because it needs it for the breaking power.
It does need
speed
to break.
Boost is great, but you know it doesn't really facilitate it. So
yeah, but like I say,
cool team.
This team is close. I think it was the same with Matt's team. There's like one or two things that I think maybe could be changed, and the team just moves immediately up in the rankings. Like it gets very close with this next pack.
I think you'll find between 16 and sort of 10, they are very close in rankings, and you'll find that I put Nightor a little bit higher in this spot because I had Common Boy in this spot. And for me, there was just... I can't really remember too much about why this team was below here. I think my issue with it was that I just didn't see how it's breaking much. It has an okay offense, and it's got some decent defense there. It's got good removal in the form of Serena, who's very reliable. But the Terra captains for me didn't quite make sense. Altaria is fine. I have no issues with Altaria as a Terra cap. I think it's a bit meh, but it can do work. Golem Alola doesn't really need it. It's fine with it, but I just think there were better options there, and I don't know, there was something about this team. I wasn't a fan of the Terra caps. I thought the speed was a bit awkward because you've got Tauros at 100, Monkey Dory at 106, and that's your fastest. And basically every team apart from a couple off the top of my head, have faster and will be able to outpace you. I think the bulk on this team, Porygon 2 is going to be doing a lot of heavy lifting, and Gastrodon is fine, but me and you personally, we have a thing where one of our friends, Don Fanatic, is desperate to take Gastrodon in like every draft, and we keep having to force them not to, because we find this mon is not as bulky as it used to be. It drops to any kind of strong hit, and grass types absolutely maul it. So yeah, I just, this team, there's nothing particularly wrong with it. As you can see, there's no like real downside. The lowest ranking I put any of its things at was 4, but it's just a bunch of meh. There's some holes type-wise that it's not going to appreciate. A few different types, like Fairy, I think is really good into this. Obviously, Monkey Dory can switch into Fairies, but if you're using that thing as your special Fairy switching, you're not going to be having a good time. It's not going to be able to take repeated hits. So yeah, it's just a bit meh for me.
I think it's just like the antithesis of Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very middling in a lot of stats, and obviously when we get to where I've put it, we'll have a bit more of a discussion over it. But there was certainly some mons on this team that I would love to have seen being just like something else, because I do think that top 6 is actually really, really solid. I love Poltergeist, by the way. Poltergeist is like my favourite mon on that draft. It's not even close.
Yeah, it's a good mon. It's a good mon.
But
yeah, I don't know. I think that you've hit the nail on the head, and I just feel like, yeah, the top 6 are good, but then it just kind of doesn't go anywhere, and I don't know, type-wise was a big problem. So yeah, I don't really have much more to say about it. It just didn't inspire me with that feng shui,
I think I know. I don't know entirely, but I think I do. I think we also have the same at 14. I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure we have the same in 14, and that is going to be Arcdon for me.
No, it's not actually.
It's not.
Because my 14,
I have fucked up.
You're fucked up. My 14 is Nightor.
Ah, okay. So, yeah, my this team was ranked 1, I think, in the previous ranking. Spoilers. If you haven't already, I'm pretty sure everyone here has already seen it, but if you haven't, my bad.
My bad.
I'm gonna be real. I don't see it. I think this team has got some really good pieces, though. This is like I said, there's a lot of teams in this middle pack that is very, very close. And I did originally have this team in 15th. This was the team that had fallen so very far in my rankings. But when I re-looked at them, I just decided, like, actually, no, this team has got more than Nightor's. But my main concern for this team is going to be breaking. I know there's a Hitmonlee, and there's an Indeedee that can hit hard. There's Typhlosion that hits fairly hard as well. But Florges Tentacruel Orthworm is just an okay defensive core. And there was just like... It was kind of like you said with Common Boys, in that it just felt a bit meh. I looked at this team, it was like... It's got everything it needs, but it just doesn't inspire me too much. Like, the pivots I put, like, it was fairly low, because you got Flip Turn on Tentacruel and you got U-Turn on Gligar, and realistically that's about it. I know there's Volt Switch on Electrode, but I don't rate Electrode particularly high. And Floor just gets Baton Pass, but at the same time, like, I don't know. There was many things with this team that I was like, I kind of like it, but I kind of don't. and it was mainly just around like the offensive side of it, because I think the like Florges Tentacruel gives you plenty on a defensive side. I just felt like it's so heavily reliant on Hitmonlee, like a reckless Hitmonlee, to try and break through things, and Typhlosion, it's another one that like wants to be specs most weeks. I don't rate Tentacruel particularly highly as a good rapid spinner, so
yeah,
like I feel like it's very rarely going to be able to get off the spin that's going to allow it to be specs frequently, or Scarf, and just yeah. Outside of that, like I thought, but there is no screens at all as far as I'm aware on this. That's why it's scored so low. I think that's the lowest score for anything is 0.5, but there was no screens outside of like light screen Florges, and this feels like a team that could really use those screens to be able to like fully take advantage of the mons that is on it.
Yeah. I think for me, I was a little bit more lenient towards Archer's team, because I could see the vision. They were, for me, it kind of seemed like, I thought the Gligar pick was so smart, because you've got a lot of things that deal with ice and water really well here. You know, you've got Go-Go and Tentacruel, who are very, very good to switch into water types with. In terms of the ice, you've got Tentacruel, you've got Hisuian Typhlosion, you've got the Orthworm. So Gligar for me felt like it was freed up a little bit in this team to do more funky stuff. It doesn't have to just be, you know, Rock Setter. And I thought that the hazard options were really, really good here. I mean, you've got Tentacruel for Toxic Spikes, you've got Orthworm for Spikes. It's like they had 2 of each. Gligar could do everything, but it doesn't have to just be Rocks.exe or Spikes.exe. So I thought that, you know, there was a lot of vision here, and I thought the types here, I think their type coverage in terms of not having any sort of gaps, phenomenal. You know, I think this was a very decent team. I really liked it. I really, really liked it. I put it a bit higher, but the problems that you mentioned for it absolutely do persist. I think in terms of pivoting, as you mentioned, obviously you've got Baton Pass on Florges, you've got Flip Turn on Tentacruel, you've got U-Turn on Gligar, you've got Volt Switch on Electrode. You know, that's it. Florges obviously can be shut down with Taunt. Tentacruel, you know, you have the only offensive pivot that you have is Volt Switch on Electrode, and, you know, unless you're terroring it in a way that beats ground types hard, because we got to remember, Electrode is not Regieleki. It doesn't have base 100 special attack. It's got 80, and even with like Stab, Terra, Ice, Terra Blast, it still
tickles.
It tickles. It doesn't do much unless you're running Specs or Life Orb, and with Life Orb you're taking rocks. With Specs you're locked into the move regardless. So, you know, I can see. I like Electrode as a Terra Cap, but I just think, you know, it's not as bulky. It's not as strong as like your Regieleki, who's more, you know, the same type of mon. You can do fast screen with Electrode. You know, you've got, I think it gets light screen, but you've got no reflect on this team, which I think would have gone a long way to helping, you know, Go-Go get a bit more of a setup. Honestly, I think if you had, I don't know, like an Abomasnow on this team, I think that could have gone really far, because you could then, you know, you've got quite a lot of okay setup options. You've got the Hitmonlee. I also think that Go-Go, and this was my biggest criticism, because Go-Go could very easily have been like a Thwacky on this team to completely allow, you know, a bit more priority option here. And I think you could potentially have then swapped Indeedee for something else. I think Indeedee into Hitmonlee with terrain setup is fine, but Indeedee doesn't have the same pivoting ability that Thwacky does with the U-turn. And yeah, Indeedee can hit hard with the expanding force, but, you know, it's, I don't know, I'm not convinced by that mon. So there's a lot of good here, there really is. And Mabostiff, I think, is probably going to be a bit sleeper. It's a decent mon. I think people underestimate the fact that it's base 90 speed, base 120 attack, and it's got okay coverage. But yeah, it's just a little bit underwhelming for me there.
I was going to say, I just had a quick look at my notes because I was making sure like I hadn't missed anything, and you almost hit like my point on the head there. This team is really lacking in coverage. So Florges, Tentacruel, Orthworm as well, very, very passive. So it's kind of like your defense is very passive, your offense is very frail for the most part, and there's just a severe lack of coverage outside of like Mabosstiff. Indeedee hasn't got Heat Wave or Mystical Fire in this, so it can't really hit steel types. That's kind of compounded by the fact that Florges can't hit steel types, Tentacruel can't hit steel types, and you're then relying on specifically just Typhlosion and Hitmonlee. Again, they don't have the greatest coverage in the world, so it's almost like every mon can do something, like does their job well, but it's gonna struggle, I think, to break through teams consistently. And if you're like an unburdened Hitmonlee, and it does get shut down relatively well by a Psychic type with a Coldberry, in a Psychic terrain, you're certainly not living a hit. And yeah, at that point, it's kind of like, well, that's my offense gone, that's my sweeping potential gone. I've just got a lot of passivity on this team, and then that's kind of just going to be the end. It's just, I'm just not going to be able to break through whatever else is coming in.
Yeah, so it does, again, feels a little bit more like an all or nothingy type situation. I think for this team, I actually rated I rated their removal quite a bit higher than you did. I know you don't really like... Oh, I know you gave it an 8.5. Yep, no, take it back. Yep.
How high did you put it? I put it at 8.5.
For some reason, I really struggle to read the doc when it's going upwards rather than down. So I keep reading and thinking, what? I gave it a 2? What are you doing?
Yep, yeah. That removal was just terrible. Tentacle Hitmonlee, 2 solid rapid spinners. Horrible.
Yeah. Again, though, I think these teams don't take into account the player's skill, and I know Arch is a very good player. So yeah,
I also think
interesting to see what they do with it.
There's very much a situation where it can overcome the weaknesses that we've said, and just either outlast the opponent, or will be able to just sweep with Hitmonlee. Like, there's definitely going to be matchups where this team is absolutely fine. Like, this is not a bad team, and like I say, this is where it gets very, very close. I think between here and like even up to like 3rd or 4th, there's only about 15 points. So that kind of just goes to show that this middle stack is just incredibly close, and it is literally like the difference of maybe 1 or 2 pieces changing that can take them from 14th up to like 4th.
Yeah, absolutely. There's really not that much between any of them. I know we've spoken about Nitor in your section, so I'm not going to harp on I'm not going to harp on it too much. But yeah, for me, I just felt that this edged commons a little bit. So yeah, I thought that Nitor was just slightly better for me here. So yeah, are you ready to move on to number 13?
Well, speaking of Common Boy, my number 13 is Common Boy.
Oh, wonderful. And my number 13 was... I think this was one we had a little bit of a discrepancy with. My number 13 was Zephus.
We won't worry talking about it, because it's not that much of a discrepancy, we'll say that much. So, yeah, you had that bit on Common Boy. I think the main thing I had in terms of issues with Common's team is the Morgrim and the Berserker. I know that it's almost like you got to that end bit and you probably said, oh, I need a fairy, I need a steel type. I would have rather you just didn't bother. Because honestly, Morgrim is not a fairy type, firstly, and Berserker is really, really not that good. So
yeah, I think the problem with having Morgrim as your... I think Berserker's one of those that I want to be good. Like, it has some really nice tools and then just doesn't do anything with them. But Morgrim, if you're looking for a fairy type that's cheap, right? Morgrim doesn't do it, because it's also the dark type, which means you're not going to have it as a fighting resist, which this team could really struggle with, to be honest, because you've got Monkey Dory, who is... Let's face it, fucking Monkey Dory, so it's going to die to whatever coverage you throw at it. And you've got Altaria, who's probably going to tear it out of the flying type anyway, so at that point you're looking at Poltergeist, who's going to come in on your fighting type moves, and if your fighting type has dark coverage, you're dead. So yeah, Morgrim, I would rather have seen a different low tier fairy in that spot. However, I like Morgrim because it does give prankster screens and prankster taunts, so it gives some good utility, but type wise, it's poor. Berserker, you know, it's one of those that I think with Assault Vest you could maybe make it do something as like a specially defensive, offensive steal.
Yeah.
But you know, not having any way of recovering its HP means it's going to get worn down very easily. And yeah, it might hit hard. But that's basically it. You know, it's just going to be it's going to be a chunky body. I feel like it's a worse Copperaja.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. I also think BP says in the chat, with the lack of steel types, you're not mad at Berserker. I think that if you're getting to a point and you have like X amount of points left, and your Terra Captains are Golem and Altaria, two mons that very much are fine terroring into steel, especially Altaria. I don't think you need to necessarily worry as much about having it. I think this is something that a lot of teams, when I looked through, was like, yeah, you've got these types, but the mons aren't particularly great. It's almost like you filled it out with types, instead of just going, okay, well, can my Terra Captain, like, how often is my Terra Captain going to terror into that type? Do I need to worry too much about having that type if I'm going to frequently terror, like, Altaria into, like, a fairy or a steel? If I'm going to, like, terror my Golem into a fairy or a steel? It's just, the magnet pool on Golem could be really nice, and I do actually really rate it as a low-tier Terra Captain. I think it's a little bit underrated. I also think that, like, you could probably just grab, like, I don't know, I can't see all the types in at the moment, but there was definitely a couple of types that were missing here, and you could have grabbed maybe a better fairy to patch up that fighting weaknesses, because like you said, both of the fighting resists at the moment very much especially defensive. They got pretty poor physically defense, so they will just die to knockoff, and relying on Morgrim to take those hits, especially because this team is incredibly weak to knockoff as it is going to be less than ideal. So maybe the Morgrim, I don't have the doc available to be able to just check the points, but if there was any fairies that were left, maybe pick up a proper fairy and just forego a steel and just be like, okay, well, both my Terra Captains can absolutely be steel types, so let me just forget about that, grab a couple of decent mons instead. But I think the top 6 are really, really solid on this team. I think the Terra Captains are okay. Not amazing, but they're okay. It's just those two in particular, I think, put a lot of my my thoughts on this team went down, because I do not rate either of those. As much as Morgrim does give the screens, there is also Serena that has screens. I believe Poltergeist also has screens, and both are kind of fine in that role. Like, especially Serena is absolutely fine in that role.
I think you've put it quite eloquently there, better than I probably would have. I've already said what I had to say about common, so should we move on to my number 13, Zephus?
One other thing I will mention is that Monkey Dory is a really nice pivot into Tauros, because it brings in steel types half the time, which Tauros is going to really appreciate, going to allow it set up opportunities. And I think Paldean Tauros, both of them, I don't even count the original one, like the original Paldean Tauros, that doesn't exist. But the Blaze and the Aqua ones, they're both really, really good in this low tier, and I think that mon is going to go pretty crazy on this team.
Yeah, same with the Aqua one later on for the team that has it, which is...
Let me just,
what a segue.
There we go, my number 12.
Lovely. Yeah, so I guess for me, I had this team a little bit lower than you. I had one place lower. And there was a few reasons why. I guess the one thing for me, it's not actually that far behind the ones above it in terms of the overall score. I think for me, I thought that it was just a little bit too slow. I really didn't like the speed tiers here. I thought that the speed tiers were really awkward for it. I gave it a 6.5 in the end, because you've basically got your Doug trio at the top, right? And then you've got Paldea, Tauros, Aqua, and then Delphox, right? And then below that, from what I remember, it's down to Shaman, and then it just falls off from there.
I think it's Mimikyu down to Skuntag.
Then it's just gone. Like, so anything below Shaman is going to have... Sorry, what's that?
Braviary at 80, so it's Mimikyu 96, 96, 97?
Yeah. So the mons that are in between that are going to be able to run the attack boosting nature.
Yeah.
Because of the difference is that much. So you're not really getting rid of any of the speed tier gaps. The team's pivots. I don't know. You've got your Vika Volt with your Volt Switch. You've got your Braviary with your U-turn, and I think that's it. I think
Shaman Baton Pass. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so. You've got two pivots in a team that has quite a few breakers. Like Terra Glaceon, I think also might get Baton Pass, but that's just one of those moves that's like, if you have to try and find room for Baton Pass on the set, because you're going to be wanting to have your coverage, you're going to be wanting to have your Terra Blast for your Terra, you're probably going to be wanting to have an extra, because I think it's Freeze Dry, you're going to want your Ice Beam on there as well. It's one of those things, like pivoting around for this team is going to be quite difficult. It just seemed like it was going to be quite rough. In terms of the types, you know, I looked at this team and I was like, Rock is going to run you in. Yeah, you've got your Tauros who can switch in and intimidate physical rockers. That's fine. But outside of Tauros, Dugtrio ain't taking any hits.
No.
Dugtrio is as a ground type here. And outside of that, you know, Electric is going to just be able to come in, and a lot of the Electric types are faster than the high tier anyway, and it's just going to be able to click Volt Switch for free. I think you're really going to struggle with that. I like the Vika Volt pick here, because it does kind of help segment a ground weakness quite well. Otherwise, you know, you'd have had your Braviary and your Shaman, which they're fine, but most ground types should have some kind of coverage to hit them. Yeah, it's just... I think the other thing as well is Psychic go kind of hard into this team. Psychic, and there's quite a lot of Psychics that are going to be kind of pushed up a little bit because of the low tier. Psychic, for me, feels like it's finally going to have its day back in the heyday, and you've got Skuntank and you've got Delphox as your only ways of switching into that. And Skuntank does the job quite well, granted, but you're not going to want to bring it to every game. And if you're having to bring Skuntank to every single game, then, you know, that's a slot that you're not bringing your Terra Glaceon. It's a slot you're not bringing your Braviary, your Tauros, your Shaman, your Delphox, your Vika Volt. So, yeah, I just thought that there was more type exploitiveness on this team that I didn't think it deserved to be higher than that for me. Yeah, there was also issues with the defense. There was, you know, I didn't think it was the bulkiest team in the world. You're having to use Taurus Paldea to deal with certain types, and you're relying on a mon that doesn't have natural healing to switch into, for example, Rock. It's going to be easy to get chipped down. Yeah, I'm not sure what you think about this one, because, you know, it's one of the teams, but it just deserved number 13 in my eyes.
Yeah, I think the main issue I had with this team, outside of the Terra Captains, which I'll get to in a second, is like the fact that the pivots don't necessarily facilitate each other particularly well. And a lot of the defensive responsibility on this team is going to come down to Shaman, because everything else has got some bulk, has got some defensive capabilities, but Shaman is like the one out and out bulky mon. Electric types are just going to run this team because Dugtrio, it dies to the coverage even if the electric type hasn't got coverage. Like that's like my main concern, is that like your ground type is so incredibly frail. But yeah, the Glaceon can fill that role, because there's three types that Glaceon wants to be, and that's ice, water, and ground. And at least the ground would then give you a bulky ground type. I just don't think that these Terra Captains help the team at all.
No, they don't give you any extra value. Sorry, I'll cut in a little bit there, because that's a point that I did have it in my notes. You've already got decent special breakers with Vika Volt and Delphox. You've already got very good removal in Braviary. You know, Carcole, I'm not a fan of. I think that mon's overrated as fuck. I saw people be like, "Oh my god, Steam Engine's gonna go fucking crazy," and I'm like, "Yeah, what would you base 50 attack? What are you gonna do?"
Even after a weakness policy, you're still not doing half to most things.
Exactly. I just think that mon's overrated. I don't like it. You already have a fire type. You didn't need the extra one. Yeah, you can tear it out of it, but I just... Surely there must have been a better lower tier than Carcol you could have grabbed. Carcol slander in the chat, boys.
I think the one thing that Carcol has on this team is that it does give a steel type terror. But I think like having a mon that preferred to go into a steel type without having a steel type obviously available, because this team, again, there is no fairy resist outside Delphox. So really you do want, I mean that's Carcol technically, but Carcol was also going to be the mon that terrors into a type that resists the fairy, because I think you're wanting a steel type on this team. And if you're terroring Carcol over Glaceon, then you got some problems. I think Glaceon is fine as a like offensive Terra Captain. It can be a little bit defensive, but I think it's mainly just on its offensive side. And his team didn't necessarily need more offense. I think it probably could have done with a defensive Terra. But I do really like the top 6. Top 6 are one of the strongest top 6 in the league. I think the Terra's really brought it down, in my opinion, and just I don't rate Dugtrio. Even with Arena Trap, I'm not a massive fan of it. But without it, it's so frail. It doesn't really hit hard enough with Earthquake as well, and it's pretty much just going to be Choice Band, lock into Earthquake for it to be able to do damage. Skuntank is fine, but maybe a proper poison type on this team would have gone a little bit better. Just as a second,
quite far, yeah.
Just a better fairy answer, like a proper hyper voice switch in.
You don't really want to be having to rely on Delphox to have to be your special answer to Moonblast every week.
No.
So Skuntank, I like it as a mon. I think it's got very interesting stat spread and a very interesting like gameplay loop. But yeah, as you say, like another poison here, an actual poison would have gone quite far.
I don't think that Muck got picked up, and Muck would go.
I think it did.
Did
but
it?
I know for a fact that Swalot didn't.
Okay, Swallow would have gone crazy on this team.
Yeah, Swallow would have done so much.
Yeah, I think if the Dugtrio was a different ground type, I don't know what ground types are available, but certainly if Skuntank is Swalot, maybe grab a dark type that terrors, because I think a dark type with terror here could be really, really scary. Yeah. But I do really like the this entire team's ability to you got really good physical setup with Mimikyu, Tauros, and Braviary. Braviary is super scary, very underrated mon. Hits incredibly hard.
Oh yeah, I'm a big believer in that thing. I think that's an excellent pick.
Yeah, and Delphox as well, fast, nasty plot mon, is going to be scary down here. I think, again, this is one of those teams that was really hard to actually put in a place, and the fact that we had it as low, both in the same or very similar spot is kind of crazy. Because I feel like it's a team that, depending on the person, and depending on how you enjoy Carcol, I guess, as a terror, it goes up in your estimations. But I think with just a change to the Terramons and maybe a change to your poison type, this team shoots straight up. That top 6 is so good.
Yeah.
That it's so unfortunate it gets brought down by the bottom 2.
That brings us to a really important point as well, because we've mentioned for at least the past 2 or 3 teams that the Terra Captains are, what have brought it down, or, they're the low tiers are what have, made the team not great. Because me and Amber were speaking a lot about the draft as it was going on live, and what we found, there was a lot of the higher tiers were either a little bit overvalued, or it was harder to find value up there. So where you found your value low tier was where the draft really came alive for me. So
yes,
if the terrors really make or break these drafts, because obviously with the pool being so small and with the types being so condensed, having a terror that's able to be very versatile became incredibly valuable for me personally. And I know you said the same thing to me as well. So if your terrors aren't adding value or giving you a different gameplay style to what you already have, then for me, it wasn't justified in me doing it. So that's kind of how I feel about Glaceon and Carcol. Carcol, of course, gives you spin. That's it. And Glaceon, it's a good Terra Captain mon, but it doesn't do anything different for this team. So yeah, it's unfortunate, and I'm sure you'll find ways to make it work. But yeah, I think the Terrors really were the secret sauce for a lot of these drafts.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I don't know, you had somebody completely different in 12, you said.
Yeah, I think my number 12 was someone I think you've already had. But my number 12 was
Zarkon. Okay. So with that,
I think I had.
we'll just move straight on to number 11, I guess.
Yeah, we'll move straight on. We've spoken about Arch, but
yeah.
I will just quickly say I had Arch a bit higher just because I saw the potential of the team rather than. You know, I thought that there were matchups where it would go crazy. So
I agree. It's definitely like it's got high peaks in like its areas. Like it's got high peaks in its defense. It's got high peaks in potential offense. Yeah. It's just very inconsistent, I feel. And also, I'm not a fan of the Terrors. That's just me.
Yeah, exactly. As we just spoke about, the Terrors are the secret sauce. But yeah, let's move on to number 11.
For me, number 11 is going to be Leo.
Ooh, amazing.
And I think you may have Leo a little bit higher than me.
I do have Leo a little bit higher than that, so I won't reveal my number 11 just yet. Okay.
So, my thing with Leo's team, and I know his Steel Dragon Fairy Core at the top there is good. It's definitely one of the best, if not the best in the league. Yes. My issue with this team is it's the bottom four. I think this is kind of a case of a lot of teams, is that if you go top heavy, or you spent big points on ones that maybe were a little bit overpriced, or at least in our opinion were overpriced, we're going to rank them lower because we don't see the value nearly as much as the person that's drafted it.
Of course, yeah.
With this team, my real major concern is fighting types. Because you've got fairy types covered only by Registeel, as he only resists outside of a Terra. And yes, that's a fantastic resist. However, one that will just baton pass on the Registeel or U-turn out, whatever, brings in a fighting type or a ground type, and fighting type in particular, you are kind of fucked. I'm gonna be real.
Now, of course, people will say, you've got the Gardevoir there that can switch in, but name me a fighting type that doesn't have Poison Jab or Iron Head in its coverage.
Yeah, and also if Gardevoir is your defensive answer to most fighting types, yes, there's Rotom as well, but again, most fighting types will have knockoff, and knocking off a Registeel is absolutely fine as well. So, clicking knockoff of your fighting type initially is going to be just a pretty free click. And neither Gardevoir nor Rotom are going to be able to take either of those hits. Gardevoir is absolutely fine offensively, but it is the main answer to a fighting type hit, and it's still going to take 40% on a 4x resist, unless it's physically defensive. And if you're running your Gardevoir as physically defensive, it's not ideal.
It's not ideal at all. Now that kind of leads to the issue where you've then got to try and run your Terra types as things that resist fighting, right? And Meganium, loves being fairy type. It likes being flying type, that's fine. But there are going to be matchups where Meganium doesn't really do anything. And your other option there is Tatsugiri. And Tatsugiri, I don't know if you've seen, but you've seen obviously, but I don't know if you motherfuckers in the chat have seen, Tatsugiri's got no physical bulk whatsoever. Great mon. I personally really rate it. I know you're not the biggest of fans of Tatsugiri, but I think it's a genuinely okay mon. But it doesn't really... it gives you removal, which is great, and it's absolutely needed on the team, and I think you've done well to find low-tier removal that's a usable Pokemon, but it doesn't help defensively, which I suppose it doesn't need to, but that fighting weakness is looking really nasty.
Yeah, I think also I felt like there was probably Terra Captains on the board that could have been just better for the team.
Yeah, for the team specifically, yeah.
Yeah, Breloom, I think, is absolutely terrifying for down here.
Oh god, yeah.
So this was a team that I looked at the top four and was like, shit, that is a top four that is very, very good. I looked at the next tier, I was like, yeah, that's not bad either. Gives you good spikes, gives you one of the better offensive spin blockers in the game. And then Sneasel, I was like, why is this here? Is it just for speed tier maybe?
For the speed.
I don't rate Sneasel too much. I rate regular Sneasel much more than Hisuian, but I feel like that could be something entirely different. And also Flareon, I think, doesn't provide too much. I also just remembered another thing is if you don't bring Tatsugiri, fire types are a big issue. big issue.
Yeah, you've got the Flareon and you've got the Flygon, so it's not so bad, but you don't want to have to bring Flareon every week, and Flygon wants to be more offensive than defensive, especially when you've got decent defensive pieces like the Registeel and the Quillfish, you know, so...
Yeah, I think my main issue with this team is, though, the defensive structure of, like, Registeel, Hisuian, Quillfish, with, like, a defensive Rotom or, like, Flygon, Meganium. It looks okay on paper, but when you actually look at it more in depth, you realize that it can't deal with many types. And, like, Fairy, Fire, Fighting, even Ground, I found was, like, a bit of a problem for this team as well. A lot of those are being covered by the Terra Captains, and those Terra Captains... Tatsugiri's fine as an offensive Terra Captain, but it's certainly not going to be a defensive answer to a lot of those types. So I felt like if Meganium was maybe something else, and if the Flareon was maybe something else, because, again, like, you don't really want to run Flash Fire on that every week just to cover the fire types. So
no, you don't. You don't.
And then
especially
Flygon...
when it's got such a good guts set as well.
Flygon doesn't want to be burned. So, like, switching into a fire type move is going to be risky. So there's quite a few types that low Registeel itself is good. The types that it's weak to, and with Registeel being quite a passive Pokemon, it's going to put him on the back foot a lot, because he's going to struggle to switch into those types that are super effective against Registeel. And it's going to be a case of, can the offense in Breloom, Gardevoir, Flygon break through or beat the other team before they can take advantage of that Registeel, because it could very well just be set up fodder for types that this team doesn't deal with. But I will say, top 6, very, very strong, because there's not a great deal that's going to... Like, you bring that top 6, and for the most part, you're going to have everything you need on a team. I just worry for when the top 6 aren't going to, like, work in the matchup. The bottom 4 maybe aren't the best things to sub in.
No, I think there was definitely some things that Leo potentially could have looked at. I will say as well, Leo got sniped a lot.
Yeah. Leo had to take like an hour to deal with the snipes that he had, because
it wasn't like Leo just had one pick ready or something. Leo had like 3 or 4 plans going at once, and everything went in between like 5 picks for him, and he just... So Leo's done well to assemble a team here. I'm genuinely quite impressed with how okay it came out, despite how many snipes Leo had. But yeah, it's not perfect, and I've got it a little bit higher, and you'll see in a little bit. But because I think the potential of this team is huge. I think there's so many lovely pieces here. I think Gardevoir, Flygon, Registeel is the best FDS core in the league. Personally, I think it's wonderful. I think Bloom is a monster down here, as you've mentioned. They've got very good hazard options with Quillfish Hisui. Granted, that's the only Spike and Toxic Spike option.
Yeah.
Which kind of pigeonholes it, because there's a lot of nuance to Quillfish Hisui as a mon, and if you're forcing it to be the Spiker every week, it's not going to be able to fulfill its potential. However, you know, I can see why it's down there that low. This team looks a little bit exploitable, and yeah, Leo's a very good player, and I'm sure he'll work around it, but yeah, he might find himself struggling in the builder a bit.
Yeah, I think there was another thing of, like, Rotom was only 3 points, so Rotom could have been a secondary Terra Captain, and maybe Tatsugiri isn't a Terra Captain. I'm just like, I remember looking at Rotom as my secondary Terra Captain and thinking that's pretty good value for 3. But I think the Meganium in particular is just like the thing that I look at and go, why is this here?
Yeah, I feel like Meganium could absolutely have been something else. Like,
yeah,
you've already got your grass type. You've already got some decently bulky mons on there. I understand if you want like just a decent big body to come in and take hits, but you know, it's a Meganium. You know, it's got like no coverage. Yeah, you can do Swords Dance with it. You can do Leech Seed with it, but
they're both things that Breloom just does better.
Exactly. So you've already got a grass type that does both of those things better than it already. So surely there was something else down there, and it might have been a case of like Leo just couldn't see anything else down there that he wanted, and he was just like, look, this is going to be my last mon. I just need something to click. But
yeah,
you know, I feel like there is some value down there.
I think, if I remember rightly, Breloom was the last pick on his team. So it was a good chance that he picked up Meganium thinking that was going to be his grass type, got sniped with whatever was going to be the last pick, and went with Breloom instead, and just went, you know what, I've got Meganium, that'll probably be fine, and stuck with it. I wouldn't be surprised to see that go at some point and be replaced by something else. But I will certainly say, in terms of top fours, this is probably the most threatening. And again, this is a team that is only like a few points away from moving up to like 4th.
Absolutely. There's so much like compression in this middle section of our tier list. You know, there's so many.
I think this literally just came down to like its weaknesses to certain types and like the double up of types that probably weren't needed on this team.
Yeah. Well, shall we move on to who I had at number 11?
Go for it.
Right, so my number 11 is my where are they? Where are you? Where are you? I can't find
There's the rest of you.
My number one my week 1 opponent, GB Josh. That's who I had as my number 11. I know you've got this one a little bit higher, but I saw some annoying issues with this team, particularly the fact that the HP recovery on this team is looking rough. You've got Stabilize Recover, you've got Vileplume's Strength Sap, and that's it. That's it. Charizard doesn't get Roost. Fiona has no way of self-healing outside of Rest. Cleavor can't do anything. Uxie quite famously has no recovery, so that's why that's not been a better mon in recent generations. And the removal here is Sandslash. And on a team where you've got no HP recovery outside of Vileplume, you're putting a lot of pressure on your low tier grass type to come in and take these hits, right? Cleavor, and I put in my notes, Josh, and I know you're in the chat to hear me. I put in my notes, Josh, if you ever click defog with Cleavor once during this league, I will personally come to your house and deliver you a bag of dog poo. Oh god.
It's not got removal. Just count Cleavor out. It doesn't have it.
Yeah, it does not count as defog, and if you ever click it, I'm smacking you. I'm smacking you, mate. Oh god. Obviously there is, as BP's just put in chat, there's a chance to run with Fiona the whole rest, sleep, talk, take heart set, but then you've got one move for coverage, and you know
Scold is annoying. Good. It's not that good.
Scold is fine. Yeah, it's not great. I think there's a lot of good about this though. I love the Sableye pick here. I really do. I think it gives screens for Terra Charizard and Terra Fiona and even Sandslash to set up quite well. I think Tauros as a wall breaker is fantastic, and I've also got here that Cleavor Jolteon looks like one of the best Volt Turn cores in the league. I adore that so much. Like, that's going to be so annoying to prep for. If you know that's going to be really annoying to have to deal with. Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things, right? It's very similar to what we thought about Leo's team here, right? I don't think there's any individual bad mon on this team. No. I just think that there's a few exploitable weaknesses here that could be a little bit of a pain for Josh down the line, right? And you don't want to have to rely on heavy duty boots on every single one of these mons, right?
Yeah. I think my main concern with Josh's team is that his fire resists are his Terra Captains. And I rate Charizard as a Terra Captain. I don't rate Fiona in any way at all. But like, if there was a bulkier water type, maybe this team is like considerably better, I think, in my opinion, just because the bulky water would go hard with Vileplume Uxie.
Yes.
I did really like how effective this team was at forcing switches, and that's why it's higher on mine, which I can get into more obviously when we get to mine. But
yeah, we can. I just want to mention as well, the defense on mine is so low, despite the fact that we've got Vileplume, Uxie, Gramble, you know, famously kind of defensive-ish mons, just literally because of the lack of recovery on them. They are going to be so easy to chip. Like, sure, Gramble will come in on the choice banded fighting type and intimidate it, and then still take 20% and a stealth rock. you know, so it can't do that the whole game. And Yuxi is going to get, as like you're only switching to, as you say, like fire. If Yuxi is going to be the only thing that you've got to switch into fire types because you've terrored your Charizard, or you've brought Fiona and you've terrored it into like a fairy type or something, then Yuxi's taking one, it's switching out, it's coming in, taking another, and then it's dead.
Yeah.
Like it could be, I don't know, it's another one where the potential of this team is very high, and I can see, you know, the synergy. There is good synergy here. I just think it's going to struggle into some of these more bulky, annoying teams, you know.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. It's it's a team that I think offensively is actually really, really solid. I think there's a lot of good breaking power and a lot of good mons that can kind of pick off low opponents. And with having Kleber with that Stone Axe being like the main thing that takes away the need to run Stealth Rock and Uxie, means that Uxie's freed up a lot more to run annoying fucker sets.
Yes.
And also to be like a Calm Mind Draining Kiss set, which would give it some recovery. So, like, it's higher on mine just because of the ability to kind of pivot around and really rack up chip, whilst being a little bit annoying to break. I rated the defensive core a bit higher than you did.
Mm-hmm. And that's valid. Like, as I said, there's going to be discrepancies between Alice because we value different things differently. And, you know, I think on the whole, we're fairly sort of similar thinking, but, you know, there is a little bit difference there. So, yeah, let's I see you've rated your your next guy a bit differently than me as well.
Yeah, so in 10th I have AP.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of things to this team that absolutely make it stand out from every other team in this league. Firstly, Chomeko is the only Heal Bell user. Obviously, that's the big takeaway.
Yes.
But the main thing is,
I love that one.
This team is so fucking fast. This is unnecessarily quick, to the point in which you will lose to Trick Room. Because there is I looked through it, there's actually quite a few good Trick Room users down here.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of teams have got good Trick Room users. This team is going to really struggle against that, because there is no defense. This is just offense. There's a Sandaconda, there's a Chimecho. Whimsicott can be somewhat defensive. Revavroom can be somewhat defensive. Primeape can be Eviolite.
Okay,
like,
an okay AV user, but
yeah,
you can't. I don't think there's going to be a single matchup where you're going to be able to block everything on the other, you know, the other team just by using your kind of support pieces more defensively here. So
yeah.
I don't know. I love the speed on this, right? I think the cool thing about the speed here is that it's also got like no overlap, right? So you've got Cyclizar 121, Whimsicott 116, Floatzel 115, Miss Magius is 105, and then you've got Ninetales 100. So there's no. Well, I think you've got
Raichu 110
as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no overlap. It's absolutely going to be a nightmare to prep for speed tier wise. Absolutely going to be a nightmare for that. But as you say, Trick Room looks nasty.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
I also just, like, this team has got endless pivots, like Raichu, Floatzel, Whimsicott, Revavroom, Cyclizar. Pivoting is absolutely fucking on the table. Primeape as well. The only issue I have is that none of these mons actually break. Like, with a Choice Band or Choice Specs, yes, they can. I think Floatzel is going to be very underrated down here. A lot of them require setup to be particularly potent, and there is good setup on this team, like Shift Gear on Cyclizar and Revavroom, Nasty Plot Miss Magius, Bulk Up Primeape and
Coil
Floatzel,
Sandaconda,
Nasty Plot Raichu, Cosmic Power, Calm Mind, Chomeko.
Yeah, like everything has it.
Yeah, everything has setup, everything pivots. My main concern is that this team's just not going to be able to take hits, and if it doesn't kill the other team quick enough, you will lose. Because, like, bulky offense cooks this team. Like,
it really does.
It can't break through quick enough. They're gonna kill you in one hit to, like, at least half your team.
Yeah.
And my issue with the speed tiers was, yes, they're all really fast, but then you have Primape's 95, Revavroom 90, and then Sandaconda's 70, 74, 72, something like that. But you're never running speed on that, or you're not likely to run a lot of speed. So that gap is gigantic between those.
Yes, it is.
And anything that's then below Sandaconda, that's like a bulky offensive mon, just gets to run max HP and not care about half of these mons.
Yeah, because you're struggling to break them as it is, but if everything below the speed tier is going max bulk, you're even more in trouble, right? I think the thing that might have helped this team out a bit, and I don't know if they were sniped or what, because it ended up on my team, of course, but I think Primeape here should have been Hariyama. I really think it should have been Hariyama, because that gives you another fire and another ice resist. It's a fatter mon that can run, a bit more of a bruiser, tanky playstyle. Whereas Primeape here, without the Terror, I'm not a fan. I'm really not a fan. I think it's a 2.3 point mon most without the Terror, and I just think it's overpriced without it. And I think there were options that this team could have taken in order to make themselves a little bit more, a little bit more of a stayer. Being able to last the game a little bit longer. But Cyclizar is going to have to put this game, like this whole league, on its shoulder. Because I appreciate the ability to switch in, take hits, regenerate it out, but the rest of them, your wish user is a Chimecho, and with all greatest respect to Chimecho, I love that mon to pieces. It's not bulky.
It's not got the HP stat. Let's not say it's not bulky, because we've seen that Chimecho can do things, especially with Terror. Like
shout out to Ellie.
Like at least. Like 2/3 of the Terra captain score is Chimecho alone. I don't think that it needed Terra is the one thing, and maybe Primeape should have been the Terra captain, and then you grab like a 1-point Terra cap and spend points elsewhere if possible. Again, like it's one of those things where there was so limited board that we can say, hey, grab something else instead of this mon. That mon might not exist, and that's. But at the same time, if you look at a team and say, yeah, this is the best that they've got that's on the board, I feel like it's not a fair ranking. But
I think they've also picked one of the few electric types in the game that doesn't really need Terra to beat ground types, because it's got Surf, it's got Grass Knot. You don't actually need to go Terra to give Raichu the coverage and expand it. I mean, you could just take the Terra off of both of these, give one to Primeape. That could have been a better way of going about it. But again, we're talking smack here, but I do think this team is still very solid. It's still very solid, and the fact you've managed to make a team like this that looks like if you don't run Trick Room against it, you're not outspeeding it. And you're gonna have to switch into the likes of Banded Floatzel and Banded Revavroom, or they've got really good pivot options on here too, and it could be really annoying to play against. But we've pretty much got the same opinion of this one. I think I just rated it a little higher. Yeah,
I think like the sheer volume of pivots and potential setup opportunity, or setup mons. Plus, I think the Dragonsteel Fairy Core at the top 3 is. Cyclizar was probably top 3 mons on the board. The fact that it didn't go with like the first 3 picks was crazy to me. But like Cyclizar, Revavroom, obviously Revavroom covers a good amount of the weaknesses that Cyclizar has. Whimsicott covers the weaknesses that Revavroom to an extent has. Like they cover each other fairly well. Like not perfectly, but they also just pivot around each other. So I do really like that. I think the only thing that really kind of lets it down is like what I said, where it's all in, or it's just gonna, like, if it's not got the breaking power or not got the set, like if it doesn't set up, there's a strong chance it doesn't ever break through a team, and it will just lose to a bulkier offensive team.
So yeah, I think that's pretty much all we have to say about that one, I guess.
Yeah.
We've been pretty in depth with that one. But yeah, it's a decent team. Shall I reveal my number 10?
You go ahead.
Alright, so my number 10, we have the Kansas City Kyurem Standard VR.
Okay. I'm not surprised to see this one. This one was all over the place in my rankings as well. So
I re-ranked this one 3 times. At one point, it was as high as 3rd for me, and then I looked at it again and again, and I just realized the issues with this team are way more prevalent than they first appear. Right? So
yeah.
Firstly, I've got the Cleric score as 1.5. Now, I don't know if we clarified that, but Cleric, for me personally on my side, is not your ability to click Wish. It's your ability to restore your own health.
Yeah, like I put it down as healing because it is more or less vague, but I also did that by the same metrics of your healing moves. I have 0.5 for this team.
I only gave it 1.5 because you do technically have a Wish passer, but Espeon is not a Wish passer, you know? And
it is only
other way of...
It's literally Espeon has Morning Sun and Wish. That is the only thing in the reliable like recovery section. And then there's Pain Split.
Potential Pain Split on Spiritomb, and
Quillfish.
So you've got oh yeah, Quillfish gets it too. But,
and Rotom.
You know,
there's a few Pain Splitters. I'm just ruining your entire theory.
You're ruining my theory. But yeah, like you've got a bunch of unreliable recovery, right? And the fact that, hang on, I rated this higher than you. I rated the Clericing higher than you.
You did, yeah.
And I forgot about half of the...
I didn't count Pain Split in that. Pain Split was part of... which one did I put it in?
Support or...
support, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, Pain Split had its own like whole point that went towards the score. And I think I gave it 1 because there's 3 Pain Split users. All are pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, Pain Split's fine here. You know,
yeah.
It's good on Spiritomb. It's good on, it's okay on Quillfish. Quillfish probably doesn't really want to be using it because it's got a massively fat move pool that, you know, wants to run 17 different moves each day. It wants Flip Turn, it wants Liquidation, Aqua Jet, Swords Dance, Spikes, Toxic Spikes, Pain Split, it wants Haze. It's got so many different things it wants to do. So, you know, having a Wish Passer for something like Quillfish, which isn't the most physically bulky thing in the world, would have been nice. And no, I'm not counting Espeon as a Wish Passer because that thing is not.
Enjoy getting your potentially 2 health back whilst losing your entire Espeon.
Well, yeah, while losing your Espeon because it's got the bulk of a fucking not bulky thing. I've got to say, like, the Terra Captains on this team, though, I really, really rated these. In fact, I think I rated them lower than I should have done.
Yeah, I would agree, actually.
Yeah, I know you're not a massive fan of Lycanroc, but I have seen that thing with Terra literally just go Scarf, Terra Rock every single week and break 2 or 3 months. You know, and this team is very good at capitalizing upon, you know, chipped walls. Scrafty can set up in front of them. Typhlosion can clean up once the walls are chipped. And specifically, Lycanroc likes forcing in the likes of the fighting types, which would threaten your Scrafty anyway. And Rotom Fan is probably the best low-tier Terra on the board. Well, possibly.
It's pretty decent. It's one of the better ones. I will agree.
It's one of the better ones. And I think that being able to Terra that away from something else and still keep your electric immunity is very valuable for it. So I love the Terra Captains on this team. Thwackey does not need to be here.
No, I agree entirely with that.
If you're taking Thwackey, you're taking Thwackey because you appreciate its ability to set up terrain and pivot out of that terrain and get yourself some priority at the same time. This team is decently fast. It has some very good Scarfers. You've got a very fast Espeon, and you've got Mousehold as well that, you know, they're going to outspeed the majority of things. You've got no Unburden user. You don't have anything that really wants the extra healing outside of... I know Mudsdale appreciates being able to get an extra 6.5% health back, but I think you could have gone...
It also takes more from the grass types that it's already weak to.
Exactly, yeah. And I just think that there could have been a little bit more synergy with, if you're going to keep Thwackey, you know, you could take an Unburden user, something like a Hitmonlee would have gone very well here. And, you know, Hitmonlee wasn't taken by the time Scrafty was, I think. I might be wrong.
I don't recall.
I don't recall either. It's been a long time. That draft is like Vietnam. We look back at it and we're still having PTSD flashbacks, you know? But yeah, I think a better grass, a bulkier, you know, more traditional grass would have gone better here, I think. If you're not synergizing with your Thwackey, then there's no point taking it. It's okay, but it's just not going to do what you want it to do. Yeah, the types, you can see I've got that down as a 2, right? Now, why do you think I've got that down as a 2, Amber?
One of the things has got to be because it's incredibly weak to fairy. There is also missing a couple of types.
Yes, and by a couple, it's missing. It's missing quite a few. It's got no fairy. It's got no dragon. It's got no steel.
Yeah.
So it's missing an entire FDS core, which is like the backbone of Draft League drafting. It's very, very, it's very weak to fairy. Your only switch-ins being the incredibly eruption-reliant Typhlosion and the not very specially defensive Quillfish. So fairy's going to run you through. The one thing I will say about Thwackey is it gives you terrain to potentially, make your ground weakness a bit better, but you have Rotom Fan that can tear out and still take.
Yeah. I think the main issue with Thwackey on his team in the grassy terrain is that the two mons that appreciate it are Quillfish and Typhlosion, both of which don't need the grassy terrain. Because Typhlosion is coming in, clicking a button and getting out, and Quillfish realistically is still going to be fine without it. And all it really does is makes your Mudsdale have to run high horsepower if you bring Thwackey. Nothing else on the team really needed it because like a rock can Terra out, and even if it doesn't Terra, like you say, Scarf Terra Rock gonna still hurt too much to really care whether or not there's grassy terrain.
Yeah, literally. So I love the Terra captains here. I think they're some of the better Terra captains in the league.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're missing too many types that you're going to get run over by certain teams. I think that this team's really going to struggle. It can't restore its own health very well. It's missing too many types to switch into things. You've got some good mons here, but I don't see the synergy.
Yeah, and I also think that the top tier on this team is Scrafty. Espeon, I believe, was 12 points, and that is very much overpriced in my opinion. I think Sylveon has had a massive drop off this gen. It can't hit multiple types, and realistically, I think Scrafty and Mudsdale are the two top mons on this team. I will say that the ability to prevent hazards is pretty okay because of Espeon, but again, in terms of Magic Bounce users, I would rather have had a Hatchram because at least it can take a hit. I do like Tidy Up Mousehold because, again, similar to Gingino, it's probably going to die to be able to do it, but at the same time, Mousehold is a really solid mon that forces very certain prep. And also, it's weirdly diverse in its move pool. If you don't just go, hey, I'm going to run Tidy Up Population Bombite every week, this mon will do a lot more work because it has great utility move pool. And I think the utility of Mousehold and something like Spiritomb, Rotom put this team up a little bit higher for me. I also really liked Scrafty just in general. It's one of the better mons in the format. I think if there was a better Fairy Resist on this team, and this team would go up because Scrafty would then be allowed to do more without having to fear just getting revenged by a Fairy type. And also I feel like a lot of the defensive responsibility on this team comes down to Mudsdale, which it's capable of doing, but without the recovery, without having a Wish Passer around, Mudsdale will get worn down. And like I said, a grassy terrain is fine, but at the same time it's just not going to really benefit Mudsdale too much. So yeah, it's a bit of counter synergy there. But I do quite like the general kind of build on this team. There is good spikes, there's good hazards, there is decent pivots. I do like Thwackey as a pivot. I like Mousehold as a pivot. Rotom Fan, like I said, it's great low tier. Terra Captain that's going to be able to pivot around things, and it does enjoy being both Terra Steel and Terra Fairy.
Absolutely, yeah. Love Terra Fairy.
Not many things appreciate being Terra Dragon, but that's just how it be. I felt like this team was just kind of similar to how you saw Common Boy's team. It's kind of Jack of all trades, master of none sort of team, and it's kind of that's why it's roughly in the middle, because it doesn't have the high highs of like Leo's team or AP's team, but it also doesn't have the lows that those teams had, I feel like, either. I could see this team being a lot lower. I could see it being higher, just depending on how you view certain Pokemon. It's very much one of those where like Typhlosion people rank a lot higher than maybe we would. Same with Espeon. So it's, yeah, I think it's kind of down to the person. I thought this team was just very middling across the board.
Yeah, as I say, I had it as high as third at one point in my my looking at it, because I'm like, oh my god, there's some really good mons here. I don't think there's a single bad mon. I don't think there's a single bad pick. But then you look closer at it and the flaws really reveal themselves.
Yeah, if there was a fat Wish Passer on this team, I think it immediately looks way more threatening.
Yeah, if you drop Sylveon instead of Espeon, you get 4 extra points to then upgrade something else, and you look incredible then, right?
Yeah, for sure. That was my number 9. I don't know who you have at number 9.
Well, this was one of our discrepancies, because my number 9, I had... where is he? There we are. I had 6-foot Hacks as my number 9.
Okay, I can understand it.
Yeah.
Like,
I think for a lot of these middle ones, it was just a case of, as you said, like personal preference between the mons. And I think with Leo's top 4, 5, 6, I think you could justify putting it anywhere from like 12th to 4th, right? So
yeah, even higher off the top 6, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. That top 6 is insane. I think a few jigs and this would be top 3 potential. So yeah, it's not a surprise that it's like that high up, personally.
I think a lot of what goes on with like Leo's team and potentially with a couple of teams around it is that it's literally just come down to like 1.5, which is only because they're missing or majorly missing one specific thing, be it like reliable healing, good recovery, like lacking types, or has major weaknesses. And if it wasn't for that, then they would just be so much further up the ranking. It's like, it's so close here that literally like 2 points difference takes you from, I think, like 13th up to like 7th.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we should probably move on to our number 8 instead.
Yeah, and this is somebody you had a bit lower. That's Josh is 8th. I don't know why it says 7th. He's certainly not 7th. He's 8th.
Okay. Well, we'll go with Josh first. I had them a little bit lower, yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'll load this up on a different page and I will change the number.
Hell yeah.
So,
it says 8.
But yeah,
let's go on.
Like I said, I think I appreciate the defensive capabilities of the team a lot more. I do really like the fact that it can pivot around fairly freely with good defensive and offensive pivots. Tauros is a demon, and honestly should have been the Terra Captain. I don't know why it's not the Terra Captain, because that thing would just destroy teams, fairly simply. Charizard could be interesting as a Terra Captain, means it doesn't have to run boots necessarily, but you're giving up Terra Tauros for Charizard? I know what I prefer, but I don't...
I would prefer the Tauros. Being able to, change your type and just smack things in the face sounds incredible.
Yeah, but it doesn't need it. I will say that much. Like, it doesn't need it maybe as much as Charizard does, but I also think it just would be ridiculous. Like, Terra normal body slams would just ruin teams.
Yeah.
Cleaver, obviously fairly safe rocks, because Stone Axe will always miss. Uxie, I think, is too good for this format, honestly. I know it's one of those mons that it's all utility, or for the most part it's all utility, but a lot of people sleep on its ability to just set up and potentially just live forever because of those amazing defenses and the ground immunity. Psychic is a pretty solid type at the moment in draft. So Uxie, I think, puts the score up quite a bit.
Yeah. I can see it. I spoke about my issues with the whole Uxie plus no Wish Passer thing previously.
Yeah.
Well, I do stand by that. So, yeah, I can see why it's as high as you've put it. But yeah, it's another one of those where we could have put it anywhere between 12th and 4th, and it probably would have been justified.
for sure. I have put the wrong team in the wrong place. My bad.
Wonderful.
Right. Yeah, I just put Leo up to 7th, which honestly he could well be.
He could well be. That's
he could well be. Yeah.
Okay. So, should we go on to my number 8?
Yeah, just one last thing on Josh's team is that as much as Vileplume, it has got a lot of weight on it. It's one of those mons that can, for the most part, deal with that weight, and it and Sableye actually pair really nicely, and certainly like Vileplume Uxie pairs extremely well. Yes. So it's going to be a very annoying core to break, and if you eventually do break it down, you will be worn down, and the options of like Scarf Cleaver, Jolteon, Tauros, even potentially like Manual Snowscape, Sandslash are going to be a problem.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I mean, I've kind of said all I need to say about this team now, but yeah, I think you're absolutely right. They do pair very well together. Sableye is one of those sleeper mons. I rate it quite highly, especially in low tier.
It's a very, very good spin blocker as well, which means that Cleaver's rocks are probably staying up all game.
Oh, yeah.
I think in terms of the Terra caps, like that's the biggest thing that brought this down for me, because like I say, I think Tauros could easily be the captain here and it go crazy. I think a bulky water would also have been really nice. So maybe like you get rid of Charizard. I don't know if there's any bulky waters in the lower tiers, but I would ditch Fiona in a heartbeat because it's ass.
This Fiona slander, honestly. Manaphy's going to come knocking on your door in a minute. What are you saying about my child, bruv?
Okay, but then Manaphy won't get the skull burn and will die in 2 hits. It will do 20% in exchange for its entire life. So
yeah, 20% +1. God. All right, I'm moving on. We're getting away from Josh because I don't want to be talking about him too much because I'm playing him next week.
Absolutely valid. Don't want to give away strats.
It's me.
Imagine putting yourself right in the middle. How unegotistical are you?
I'm the most honest draft league player. You know, I'm just that honest.
Well, I feel like we could probably talk about your team when I get to mine, because otherwise you'll be talking about your own team. I obviously say less about my own team as well.
I'll say more about yours. You can say more about mine.
Yeah, I think that's only fair.
Yeah, I think so.
But next up on 7 for me, and it might be one we had the biggest discrepancy on. For me, it's Pup.
Yeah, I had a very big. I put Pup very differently than you did. I don't know. Let me just get up my rankings for Pup because I need to see what I actually put for Pup. Where are we? Okay. So I think I know you've got Pup quite low. So I want to talk about the things I don't particularly like about Pup's team as much. I think the things that you rated low about Pup were things that, I rated a little bit higher and thought potentially you might be overlooking a little bit. On the one side, I think that, they've got okay hazard options, right? So Bombardier, Rhydon, 2 solid captains. Dugtrio Lola can do it quite well, and then that's it.
You got Mesprit. Mesprit is also a good one.
Yeah, Mesprit. Yeah, you've got 4 mons that like rocks, and then that's just kind of it, right? You've got webs from Rabombi, but I don't really count those as hazards.
Yeah, that's valid.
I think the things I really like, Pup can pivot around on you for days, right? You've got offensive flip, not just like
extremely hard-hitting flip.
Extremely hard-hitting flip. So you're switching in something to try and take the flip when Basculin gets momentum, and then Basculin's clicking flip, and then you've got to suddenly deal with your, a Rabombi, or you've got to deal with a Venusaur, or you've got to deal with a Bellybolt, or something that's going to do well against the thing you've switched in. I think that the low tiers on this team are really good. Like, I think Bombardier is going to be a star. I think that thing is going to be I think it's been so underrated. I genuinely think it's really good. I really like the removal here. I think Hitmontop is incredibly reliable. Oricorio, not so much, but, Oricorio is probably not going to be clicking Defog on you ever. Hitmontop probably will be clicking Rapid Spin at some point, and if you switch in your Ghost, it's going to knock off you. I think Mesprit is just I think you mentioned Psychozar being probably the best mon on the board. I think Mesprit gives it a good run for its money, just because of the amount of roll compression that it gives you with what you actually get for it. And I think the thing that lets Pop's team down for me is that the offense outside of Basculin, it's, you've got Basculin who's got, those massively hard-hitting wave crashes and flip turns. You've got Rhydon who's going to be clicking like earthquakes and going to be hitting you quite hard. But then your other Terra Captain is Dugtrio Alola. So, if you're having to bring that thing as Terra Captain, like, I don't rate that at all. I don't know if you took it because you wanted a steel type. I don't know if you took it because you wanted it, you had the points, and then decided that, you just needed to click your second Terra Captain on it. I don't know, but I don't rate that pick. Your Fairy type is Rabombi, so that's dying to a light breeze. And you've got no dragon. So your Dragon Fairy Steel is Dugtrio, Alola, and Rabombi. So your FDS core is, quite frankly, piss poor. It's not an FDS core. But I think the heights that this team can reach, it's got very nice speed tiering. Very, very nice speed tiering. Rabombi is one of the fastest things in the game. You've got double Quiver Dance. You've got screen setup with Belly Bolt. You've got slow Volt switching. You've got a lot of utility with the Mesprit. I think that this team has a lot of potential. I really think it's got a lot of potential. And I don't know, I could just see it going absolutely crazy. I really can. I like Pup's team a lot. I think it's probably higher than you've put it. So I'd like to hear your reasoning for why you think it's that low.
So Bombardier is ass. I disagree entirely with that being a good mon. I think that could have been virtually any other dark type and been just as good. You don't need the Rocky Payload because you have Rhydon, which is a genuinely very good mon. Dugtrio Alola, if you're gonna get that for a steel type, just get a bulky mon that wants to Terra Steel. It's going to be a better steel type than Alola and Dugtrio can ever be. I disagree with the speed tiers. I think the speed tiers on this team are pretty terrible, mainly because I don't count Dugtrio Alola as a bring most games. I think it's probably going to see a lot of time on the bench. So you go Rabombi all the way down to, what? Oricorio, I think? Or Basculin? Basculin is a great low tier Terra, and I know he picked up first round. It's a demon with Terra. Like, that is going to be hurting quite a bit. Yes. However, with the adaptability, obviously the way adaptability works, if it's not a water type, which it will be every week, like, it's gonna lose its stab or the adaptability stab on water, which very much hurts it. I just feel like I'm not a massive fan of Hitmontop either. I think it's a very kind of mon. Yes, it's good removal, but I think that's all it kind of offers for this team outside of maybe hitting relatively hard with Technician boosted moves. Oricorio is your spin blocker, so your whatever hazard you set up, they're going.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I really like Bellybolt. I really like Mesprit. Venusaur, jury's out. I think it's worse Vileplume, honestly. Especially with like no Sunset, right? I know it's not one that needs to be in Sun, but it's a lot better with Sun. Granted, there's manual Sun that can definitely go up here, but it cripples Basculin if they do that. Bellybolt was horrendously underpriced. Like, at 5 points, that mon should have been like at least 10, in my opinion. It's a very good mon. Mesprit is another one, like Uxie. I don't know if it should have been allowed, because I do feel like it offers way too much for down here, but at the same time, it lasted to, what, 14th pick? Or something along those lines?
Like, there were a lot of teams that just passed it up.
Yeah, and Rabombi is fast. I'm going to stop there with that, because I don't think that it doesn't really hit hard enough unless it specs. If it specs, then like it just about hits hard enough. Quiver Dance, it very rarely is able to get off effectively. I think, like I said, the speed tiers are a little bit hit and miss. If you do count Dugtrio, then it becomes much better. But it was kind of saved by its ability to boost its speed with moves for the most part.
Yeah.
Like 2 quiver dancers is always going to be pretty helpful. I think him on top gets agility as well, which could be fun. But I feel like this is a very balanced team, and I know Pup's going to use it very well because it's Pup, and it's a very Pup team. So it's going to be used well. But
I guess our discrepancy, sorry to cut in, but I guess our discrepancy between our placements of this come from the fact that, you know, you don't rate the Dugtrio, Bombardier, Hitmontop core, whereas I think that, you know, that's going to be interesting. I think Dugtrio has that, I think, as a 110. Like, it's, obviously I don't rate it as a mon on its own, but in this low tier scenario where Basculin doesn't necessarily have the Terror because it's going to still just hit ridiculously hard, I think you could absolutely just go like some kind of an offensive Terror Dugtrio and just smash things to pieces. So
yeah,
and I don't know, like, I think the low tier difference is going to come in here, and I'm interested to see how Pup uses Bombardier and Dugtrio more than, you know, anything else. So I think that's, yeah. Again, though, any of these teams could be like in the middle, just like mix and match. So
yeah, if I remember rightly, there's only like 3 points difference between Pup and Leo.
Yes, there is. So yeah, that's pretty mental.
Well, I don't know if your number 6 is something you can talk about now. Or...
Well, I think my number...
Sorry, 7, not 6.
Yeah, my number 7. My God. Who's my number 7? My God. So I had me at 71, and then it was... I didn't write down that far ahead. God, scuffed stream. I need to work this out. So, technical difficulties. I hope you're all having a great time. I hope you're all, you know, enjoying the festivities while, you know, while we rip your drafts to shreds.
Apparently there's been some trades whilst we're talking, and
yes,
AP has got Rotom Heat, which I think when I was going through it, I was like, hey, Rotom Heat would be great on AP's team.
Thus influencing the draft. Right, so my 7, in fact, I believe, was... Yes, okay, I'll do the rest of that in a minute. So, my number 7 was Stahl. I had Stahl here at number 7, because I thought that this team... Right. This one was the one where I thought the Terra Captains were... You've got one amazing Terra Captain, and you've got one... Arbok. You could bring 67 Arboks to a game, and you'd be better off bringing something else still. You know, I really rate
Arbok's not that bad. As a Terra Captain, yes.
It's an Arbok. It's an Arbok. Considering Swalot was around and you chose the Sneck, you know, just... I don't rate this mon at all, right? I understand that in some circles, you know, people think very highly of this thing. I'm not one of them. I'm a hater. I'm a fucking Sneck hater. You know, I think there's some good core. There's a good core of this team, however. I think the hazards are incredible. I think that when you've got your fortress, it's not going to do much, but it will certainly get a hazard up for you. You've got Palisand that can also set up some rocks. You've got Minior as well that can do it. I think there's a lot of decent things about this draft. Vullaby, also, it's kind of usable. It's one of the few 1-point usable mons. I think it's a decent low tier defogger for like spikes specifically, and in some circles it can be okay if you get it in on the right rocks. Pormot, I think, is one of those mons that is either gonna just be totally ass, or it's gonna be, you know, it's going to be a star. It's really going to be a star. I like the fairy here as well. Dashbun with the lower tier is going to be an okay wish passer. I think it's going to have a lot of value to it. So I think that's a very nice pick. And the Inteleon as well. I think Inteleon's going to go absolutely crazy here. So yeah, it's just a solid team. Not a massive fan of the speed tiers. I think that you've got Inteleon, then you've got obviously Minior once it's broken its shield. Then you've got Pormot at 105, meaning that anything, you know, that is outsped by Inteleon can basically run attack boosting nature, because, you know, Pormot's the next big thing. And that is always a problem, because you mean that the likes of Palisand and Snorlax are going to have to take more damage. But Snorlax's value here is the main thing that I think puts this higher for me than, you know, some of the drafts below it. Snorlax is such a good catch-all mon here. It helps you with so many types. If you don't have a good fairy resist, but you have a Snorlax, you basically have your Moonblast switching because it's that specially bulky and has access to Iron Head and Gunk Shot, right? So Snorlax is awesome. I love that mon to pieces, and I think it looks very, very good here. And yeah, Stoll, I think it did a decent job, except for the Arbok. Ditch that fucker.
It's also like bold to draft with only 9 Pokemon because we all know Fortress isn't a real Pokemon.
Oh,
So
of course, yeah.
you gotta give them extra points just for the audaciousness of drafting 9 Pokemon when you were forced to draft 10.
Yeah, Fortress is one of those that I think it might have a bit more value about it in lower tier.
Oh yeah, this team is well built around it as well. I will say that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll talk about it a bit more when I get to it because this is one of those teams that we had a bit of a discrepancy with. So,
yes, it is.
I will now talk about your team. And obviously, I had a bit of a hand in drafting this team, and for the most part, I've put the teams in like roughly the order in which I think the Pokemon, like how good they are, and like working down. Galvantula was your 12-point mon, which I know you just got because you had the points. That was never a 12-point mon.
No, it wasn't. I had the points for it, so I had to pick it.
You needed what it gave you, so it's completely understandable. The Dunsparce, I don't know if that should have been allowed. It was 8 points. This is the best mon on the board, in my opinion. Just the best, with only like a couple of potential exceptions. The Dunsparce has no switch-ins down here. Boomburst plus Earth Power will just destroy everything. Plus potential Shadow Ball and Flamethrower. Yeah. With Serene Grace as well, potentially on those. Rattled to be able to get out speed to outspeed things, and just like Calm Mind, Glare. Even be a rocker if you want it to be, which you really shouldn't. It can be coil, it can be physical as well. Like, this mon does everything. It's such a good mon, and honestly, I couldn't even tell where was your question. I don't do live chat. Sorry, Ellie's just distracted me about roast potatoes. Where is this chat about? You were trying to point to something, and I'm still I have no clue. I don't know where this message is. But
in the middle of stream, and this is what you get with
Ellie's just messaging me about roast potatoes somewhere that I can't even see. It's in the ether somewhere. Who the fuck knows? I did not see that message at all. I just scrolled up and it's there. What am I feeling on roast potatoes? Prefer a chip, but roast potatoes with a roast dinner. Fucking incredible. You can't beat it. A roast potatoes with like a pasta, then questionable. I haven't tried it, in fairness, so
roast potatoes.
Don't knock it till you try it. But
gravy pasta, interesting.
I'm intrigued. You have my attention. You may also have me throwing up in about 10 minutes.
We're answering.
Yeah, that's fuck the draft breakdown. Pasta and roasties tomorrow. I will report back how this goes.
I'm expecting reports.
But anyway, back to your team.
One thing I will just pop in. I think it's interesting because in the stream yesterday, when my team came up, there were questions saying I don't understand the round 1, the Dunsparce. That one's not even that good.
It's fucking incredible.
So it's I don't bring that. I'm not bringing that up to shit on anyone or say it's a bad opinion. It just shows that people value totally different things out of their mons.
Yeah.
So some of the mons that went round 1, like Sylveon and the Dunsparce, someone could see incredible roll compression and value in them. The other one just sees it's just a regular normal type that's low far down. So there's totally different opinions on what people value about these mons, which is really, it's fascinating. It's why I like playing the game and interacting with people, so we all have different thoughts on how to play the game.
I feel like anybody who doesn't appreciate the Dunsparce has either just run it with max HP and max attacking stat and hasn't got the use out of its bulk, or just hasn't used it, because once you use it and see how hard a Boomburst hits, even from uninvested, and also don't invest into HP on the Dunsparce, invest into his bulk instead, into his defense and special defense.
Unless you're going a max bulk set.
Yeah, unless you really need the extra bulk. But like this mon does everything. Even in like regular tiers, the Dunsparce is like a brilliant glue piece that will always take a hit, nearly always trade 1-for-1, can glare half a team, can set up rocks. It can do so many things. This should have been in 12 points. I think it just comes down to like somebody's opinion on the Dunsparce not being that high. This was the best mon on the board. Like in terms of people that have used, that was a boom burst in the background. If Ellie's in the background, get used to just random loud noises.
We do when we're in quality. It's great. Honestly, I didn't even hear that. Discord noise compressed that for me. Like I didn't
that's
hear
crazy.
That at all.
Stream did not get noise compressed. But enough to Dunsparce glazing, because I can glaze that model all day. The rest of it, one of the things that I've brought up a few times is that like bulky offense is so good against certain teams. You've got a lot of bulky offense on this team. Salazzle is a mon that I really rate, and it gives you that speed tier that you were needing. This mon's utility is kind of crazy, and fire poison is not an easy type to switch into.
No.
Hisuian Braviary for 7 points. It's a demonic wall breaker for 7. Tinted Lens or Sheer Force, both are really good. It gets agility, it gets Calm Mind, so it can hit really hard. Hariyama is great for 5 points, I think it was as well. Got good Pokemon. Decidueye is there. Torterra is also there. Torterra is also probably going to be fine. I think it's overrated as a shell smasher. I think it's better as a defensive mon. Galvantula was needed to fill speed tier gaps and to give you a good Volt Switcher.
Yeah.
Copperaja I think is incredibly underrated. I really like that mon. Terra Lapras, it's going to be your Terra every week, near enough. And it does give you a good Terra Fairy option should you need it. It also gives you like a good Terra Fire option in case like Salazzle is not going to cut it. And Floette is, I think, fairly underrated for like as a one. You needed a 1-point fairy. It was by far and away the best 1-point fairy. Just because of the Terra ruling, you needed a 1-pointer and you wanted a fairy from it. Floette is, it's not going to sweep teams. It's not going to be like the.
That's what you think.
It's not going to be the carry, but in the matchups where you need specific answer to something, Floette will be absolutely fine.
Yeah, Floette can do a job. It's not great, but I needed a 1-point Terra. I think AP's just asked an interesting question in chat. What makes you like Copperaja more as a mon?
I've used both, and Berserker, the only thing I think it has over Copperaja is U-turn. Copperaja has 2 abilities that it's able to make a lot of use out of. Has great coverage that means that it hits really hard, especially with like Sheer Force, like Life Orb if they want to run that. But Copperaja's bulk, big mistake I see a lot of people make is that they'll have a high HP stat mon and they'll invest in HP. Fuck that, just invest into your defenses and invest into your attack, and this thing will easily chew hit and be able to trade 1-for-1 because Heavy Slam is no joke from this. Its coverage, if it had Power Whip, would be perfect, but it's not quite. But it's definitely a mon that I think for a lower tier steel just offers you a lot more well-rounded, much more well-rounded mon than Berserker does. It's a better rocker as well. And
I think the main thing for me is that Copperaja is a really, like, the difference in bulk between that and Berserker, like, it is very noticeable. Like, it might not seem it on the look of things, but if you do the calcs between the difference between those 2 mons, you know, it is a lot better. And it's a better Trick Room option as well than Berserker is, because Berserker, if I remember correctly, is base 50, right? And that's not quite slow enough to make effective use of Trick Room, in my opinion. Whereas Copperaja, you Trick Room, you've suddenly got a base 130 attack stat, Sheer Force, Life Orb boosted, base 30 speed mon that can then just whack things in the face, right?
And
I'm not saying Berserk is necessarily a bad mon because it does have the U-turn over Copperaja. That's the one thing, in my opinion, that it's Copperaja is missing. But I just thought, like, if I'm going to grab a steel, I'm going to grab a very good, very cheap steel that I know is going to do a very specific job for me.
And the main thing is that both defenses are 69.
Way it's better than 6-7.
I've said obviously good things about this team. Also, yeah, Torterra does force prep with Mirror Herb. A lot of people will do that with any Shell Smasher. There'll be more, like, likely a Mirror Herb. Like, the downside to your team is that there's quite a few common weaknesses. Things like fire, things like ice. You're not particularly enjoying flying too much either. So it's like there was quite a few types that you're very much struggling against, but you have like the bulky offense to make up for that. Like the Dunsparce Space 125 HP, Hariyama 144, Copperaja 122, I think it is. Braviary has 110. Like the HP stats are high enough that you can invest into a defensive stat and be still fine. You can take those super effective hits to an extent, and then your team's just got enough bulk to be fine to make up for those weaknesses, but there is quite a few weaknesses across your team. I do really like Lapras as a Terra Captain, but it kind of is the only Terra Captain to an extent. Floette is fine for when it's needed.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it earlier, but like for me, the priority here was I wanted to get a Terra Captain that could be used offensively and defensively. I wanted a very versatile Terra Captain that was able to be terra'd into a specific type each week to cover a gap that I might have had somewhere else. So Lapras certainly is able to do that. It likes being Terra Fairy, which I don't particularly have a lot of. It's okay with being like Terra Fire because it's got the water to, the water absorb to resist it. It's got a lot of tools that make it okay for what I wanted it to do.
Yeah,
so,
for sure. I think Lapras is very solid. It's one of the better Terra Captains that was on the board.
I think my biggest problem with my draft is that I've got the base 108 in Galvantula and then Decidueye is the next fastest.
I was about to say that.
Great.
Your speed tier's got a massive gap, and unfortunately you also don't have a great deal of good Scarfers. So it's kind of like you do have a bit of a problem with speed. You have solid priority on a few mons like Hariyama, Decidueye, and Lapras, but that's roughly it. But outside, like in terms of your team itself, I think maybe if you just, I don't even know if there's something available that will be able to fill that gap. Like instead of maybe like a Torterra, is just pick up something that's based 90 or 85, 80 speed, just to kind of fill that gap a little bit. But it's probably easier said than done at this point.
I think if I didn't have to take Floette, if I was able to just rock with one Terra Cap, I probably would have been able to fill that gap a little bit more. But
yeah,
I needed a 1-point Terra, and I was like, well, if I've got to take a 1-point Terra, I might as well take Torterra as well.
But I also think, like, for the most part, the Dunsparce is going to be able to fill any role in which you might potentially need a check or an answer to something. Hariyama does give you something that covers the ice and fire weaknesses to an extent as well. Does mean that you won't be running the gut set quite as much, but I think there's enough fat on this team and enough threats that puts it above some of the other teams, despite the fact that you are lacking that speed tier, despite the fact you are lacking Scarfers. You do have some ways of making up for it, like Galvantula setting up webs. Not the greatest hazard nowadays, but it still can do it. You do have good hazard options with Toxic Spikes and Salazzle, plenty of Stealth Rockers. So there's definitely a lot of things to like about this team. I think that the one kind of major weakness is that speed tier gap.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I think that's very, very fair. The speed gap is very significant. Like anything from like base 108 below is just going to be able to run Adamant or Modest into me, and that's going to be a problem. So it is something I'm looking to try and see if I can, deal with. But it's
like you do have the fat to chew a lot of it, at least.
Yeah.
So, who did you have at number 6?
My number 6, I had
your number 6, yeah.
Your number 6, yeah. My number 6 was this motherfucker right here. Tom Campbell and the Central Coast Chloritz in it.
You go ahead and talk. I need to pee. So
you can pee.
I will. You talk all of the shit about Tom's team.
Right. Well, I think there's a 1 missing at the start of this 6th year. I think Tom was the worst team in the fucking draft because he's a motherfucker and yeah, all of that shit, you know, bruv. No, in all seriousness, I think Tom's team was very good. I'm not a massive fan of the Terra Caps at all. That was the one thing that, you know, let me down on it. Yes, Arch, he did steal my title. Motherfucker. If only that fucking Arachnid hadn't crit me, I'd have been in a much better position. God's sake. But yeah, I think Tom's team is very good. There are a couple of things lacking. I think it's lacking in a lot of setup options because your only real setup is Nasty Plot / Sword Stance Zarok and then Sword Stance Leafeon. And that's kind of it. Unless you want to go like Cosmic Power Clefairy. But that's kind of it. And when those are your best options, you know, Sword Stance Leafeon being one of your only setup options is not a good setup option, especially when it's not Terra. And I think you could easily have made that a Terra instead of Colossal. Like, I understand the Terra Caps here. I do very much understand them, but I just think there was better use for it, especially when, you know, I feel like your speed, you're not the fastest in the world. You've got Amberpon at 115, right? And that's fine, but then your next is 105, and that is gonna be a bit of a problem for you. My issue with Terra Cole is that, right, it's a good defensive Terra Captain, right? I respect it. I think that it's interesting to be able to bring, you know, I think it's interesting to cover a lot of gaps, but you already have some very good defensive pieces, right? You've got Clefairy, who's going to do very, very well. You've got Bronzong, who walls like half the fucking league, apparently, because the amount of people that said they don't deal with Bronzong is crazy. I just think that Colossal here really could have been something else. I think bringing it is fine. I just think making Leafeon Terra would have just given you a little bit more firepower. It would have given you a little bit more offensive oomph, rather than having to just run Golurk as your physical offense, right? I don't know. It's one of those teams that, like, I think it could have been a lot, you know, a bit higher for me. But I'm looking at this, right? And when it comes to your special attacking stat, you've got Zarok at 120, then you've got Dragalge, and you know, those are fine. Dragalge is a wonderful wall breaker. It does a lot of really, really big damage to things. But then you're not really backing up Zarok's physical stat, because it does have Sword Stance Sucker Punch, which it can run quite effectively. Your team is fairly physical outside of those two mons, so you might struggle a bit into the more physically inclined, you know, physical defensive teams. Flamigo, right, I think that thing is going to be strong for you. I think that thing is going to be very punchy. I think it's going to be a very good pivoter. I think it's going to absolutely maul teams, right? But again, it's going to struggle into the more physically defensive teams. And I don't know. I just think that, you know, there were a few areas that this team completely lacked. Your ability to restore your own health. You've got Clefairy, who's a, you know, decent-ish wish passer with its base 70 HP. It's higher than people give it credit for. You got Leafeon, who can also wish. But then outside of that, you've got no way of recovering your own health outside of Recover on Colossal, right? You might be able to run Pain Split on Lantern, but as we've said, that is not reliable, especially when, you know, people can play around it by switching in a low health Mon.
Also, you got fucking high HP, also high and back.
Hello, welcome back. Amber?
Hello.
Could you please tell the people why Terra Colossal doesn't work?
It's a bit shit, isn't it?
There you go.
No, it's just like... it's
sorry,
fine as a Terra Captain.
I'll just finish my point and say I think it's fine, as you said. Like, I understand it. I think it works as a Terra Captain, but I just think it doesn't fill many gaps for you here. It doesn't really help you in ways that other Mons potentially might do.
Yeah, I think, like, with this team, obviously Dragalge is a Mon that, again, might be too strong for this low tier format, but at the same time, like, it acts as a physical or a special Mon, and Bronzong is just annoying. Lantern's bulky, like, Clefairy's obviously bulky as well. Maybe didn't need two defensive Terra Captains on this team, but like, I understand why Colossal is here. I think it also can be offensive with, like, the Weakness Policy Steam Engine sets, but you're also banking on somebody proccing that, which for the most part, I don't think somebody will. Especially knowing your Terra, if your Terra like water or grass, there's really no reason to ever click a water move into you, or really a fire move, because if you don't Terra, then you're screwed that way. I think it's a fine defensive Terra captain. I just don't think it was necessarily like needed on this team. I do think it's a good spinner though, and his team did need a good spinner.
It's a good spinner, and Terra does make it a more reliable spinner, so I can respect the vision there. I very much respect the vision. I just really think that, honestly, putting Leafy on there as a Terra captain, I feel like that would have been a lot more valuable in terms of, you know, having more setup options, because I think I mentioned that your setup options for this team are Nasty Plot, Swords Dance Zarok, Swords Dance Flamigo, which was pointed out, and Swords Dance Leafeon. That's basically it.
There's Carmine Bronzong as well.
Well, people are more likely going to be running Iron Press, right?
Yeah, there's also that. Also, Tom, there are so many things wrong with that sentence that you just said. It was going to be Terra Decidui, but I needed removal. Firstly, Decidui gets removal. Secondly, you don't have Decidui. And also, it couldn't Terra, I'm pretty sure, in this league. So...
I think Hisuian could. I think Hisuian.
Oh, okay, it's Hisuian. Yeah. I was just like...
Honestly, I would have rated that. I would have really rated that.
Where is he going with this? There's so many different things that don't make sense.
No, I think Terra Hisuian's Decidui. I personally think it would have been a better pick.
It would have been better.
You know,
yeah.
You could swap Leafeon for something else then as well.
Actually,
you know, fixing up some gaps.
I somewhat disagree, because I think I walked back in when you said that Squonk was going to be crazy. Squonk is Flamigo. It's just, that is its name, is Squonk.
Big Squonk.
That mon is going to be a problem down here, because there's not a great deal that really wants to switch into the combination of fighting plus flying anyway. There's even more limited options, just because the bulk is mainly normal types down here. I feel like there's some steel types, but they're certainly not going to want to take it, nor normal types. So there's a good chance that Flamigo ends up being like one of the kill leaders, just because it comes in, it clears close combat or Brave Bird, and claims the kill. Golurk
absolutely
hits hard. It hits real hard. I'm pretty sure that could Terra as well. So like you could have Terra Golurk again. I don't think it really needs it too much, but
no, it doesn't.
Was an option just in case. Terra Leafeon is also an option. I don't remember the points. I'm probably getting mixed up with another league, but I think you could have Terra Leafeon instead of Clefairy, and I would have taken that. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I was in two drafts at the same time, and it may have been that they... Because I remember Leafeon in 2 and Clefairy in 3, but again, that could have been just in a different league, and I'm talking shit. Which I am anyway, but even more so.
No, it couldn't have been, because Clefairy was 2 points and Leafeon was 5 points.
Oh, okay. So wildly different.
They could have done Clefairy and Leafeon, but they wouldn't have been able to do Leafeon Colossal.
I also think that Clefairy, I know that it's just like probably the situation you were in, you had to just Terra Clefairy because 2 points.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's never going to Terra. It's not a good Terra captain. You want to keep that fairy type. So...
Like, the only use case for it is to Terra into Fairy so that you can get the Draining Kiss boost.
Yeah.
That's like the only thing.
That's probably about it.
Mindset. Yeah.
Also, we just hate Ambipom in this house.
Yeah.
I don't... It's going to be fine in lower tier, but losing Tail Slap just killed it, honestly. I do really like the combination of Bronzong, Zorok, and Dragalge as well. Like, Zorok could be a real problem for a lot of teams. I should probably talk about this more when I get to it, because I do have Tom's team higher than this. But there's a lot of things on this team. Like, defensively, this team is really, really solid. Offensively, there's a good core of Zorok, Flamigo, being able to bring in things like Golurk, Ambipom, kind of. But yeah, there's a lot to like about this team. Bronzong is really annoying for down here, because there's just like the ghost types aren't amazing, the dark types aren't amazing, so Bronzong kind of just sits on a lot of things. And any fire types, there's a Colossal. So
yeah, I don't know, like, yeah, it's one of them teams that's like, I understand why things are the way that they are. It just, maybe it's a personal thing for me. Maybe I just don't like it because I'm not a fan of certain mons, etc. But
Lantern does
is
just
what
beat
it is.
teams.
Oh yeah, it does. Lantern does just beat teams.
I love
that.
We've already lost to Lantern, so why are we even talking about it?
Tom's already got the win.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
number 5 for me was BP. And in terms of logos, honestly, this might be top 3. I love the richness of the yellow. Just it just tickles something in my brain. I don't know why. It just does.
It's awesome. It's a really nice logo.
I'll
put mine up on screen because instead of BP,
you have AP. Well,
it's an AI logo. Okay. Well, you immediately.
Yeah, that's
yeah. Fuck you then.
Yep, pretty much. I didn't even know that was a thing. I was gonna say if that's a thing, then you can get the fuck out. But this logo,
I know you.
It looks nice. Regardless, if it was AI, the computer picked a really nice yellow.
Yes, it did indeed.
So, BP's team. I have 2 major gripes of it, and then the rest of it is I really like. The gripes are the Golem and the Wigglytuff. I don't rate either. I'm gonna be real. And also your rockers are Wigglytuff and Golem. I don't really count Bishop because how often are you going to want to run rocks and Bishop? I don't think too often.
And Wigglytuff as well struggles to fit it on its sets when it's going Wish, Baton Pass, Stab, and coverage move and Protect maybe.
Like Golem is a solid lead. Rocks is pretty much guaranteed to get it up, barring Taunt. And also Frostlass being the Terra Captain, it kind of like, do you want to bring spikes on your Terra Captain? Maybe not. I don't know. It depends on the matchup. But outside of that, like I really like this team. Talonflame. Initially, when I saw Talonflame went as early as it did, I was like, well, it's just kind of a utility mon. It clicks U-turn, it clicks Defog, it clicks Will-O-Wisp. Do you really want that to be like your first pick? And then the more I thought about it, down here it has much more opportunities to click Soul's Dance and Bulk Up and go kind of crazy because you need to basically have a Scarfer outside of Electrode and Jolteon. I think they're the only 2 things that will be faster. And that's kind of scary. You have to bring a Scarfer against it, so it does force that prep. But also just like it's got good roll compressions. It can run that Willow like U-turn set. It can be physical, it can be special. It does just enough to, I think, warrant that first pick. I really want to talk about Kingdra because I wanted to draft Kingdra. Like it went like a couple of picks before it got to me. I was devastated because I really wanted to try this. I think it'd be a really fun mon. It has the opportunity to be absolutely nuts. Like focus energy sets, gonna do a lot. Dragon Dance. You can also just set up manual rain for yourself. You have 2 mons that can spam Hurricane on this team as well. Like I think Kingdom is really, really good, and it was like 8 points. I was devastated when Kingdra went. Like, maybe that's the reason why this team is as high as it is, because of just my love for Kingdra in a low tier setting. But,
possibly, yeah. I think half the league wanted Kingdra at some point. I think you're not the only one that saw Kingdra and was like, oh my god, this thing looks incredible in low tier. So yeah, I can really see that I think it's going to get a lot of usage on BP's team. I think the Wigglytuff pick makes sense. I think with the lower power level, Wigglytuff can just about be made bulky enough to be able to wish pass quite effectively into things like Bishop. It also has nice synergy with it, especially on the type front. The thing for me that lets this team down, because I think it's got so much utility, so much value in the Grafai pick specifically. It's good physically and, well, the team is good physically and specially, with Kingdra being able to do both. Articuno Galar is a menace. Bishop is another menace. I think that thing's going to be crazy. But the thing that lets this team down for me is the Terracaps. Neither of those two, I understand you probably needed to take a 1-point Terra Captain, right? And Dragonair was a dragon type, and it looked fun, and I get all that. You probably just picked what looked fun in 1 point, right? But Frostlass, I don't rate as a Terra Capital. I really don't. I think it doesn't. The only thing it wants to do is get rid of the ice typing, which it somehow found a niche to make that work for it. Okay, it's a spiker. It's a fast spiker with an okay power level. That's it, right? Giving it Terra doesn't really do much for it other than allow it to set up spikes easier, I guess. So I think if you were gonna put anything else on this team as a Terra captain, maybe Golem could have been better, because then you could run, you know, physically defensive fairy type, or you could run physically defensive fire type or something, you know? Like, I think that could have worked a bit better. I think the Terra caps are weak. I really do.
Just a quick question. Is Grafai able to Terra in this?
Fact checker. Let's go. Grafai is able to Terra. That would have been a better choice because of unburden sets.
Swap those two over, and you've immediately brought your Terra captains up by like 2 points. I agree. I think Frostlass, yes, it appreciates the like damage boost on like a Terra Ice or a Terra Ghost. I don't see any other reason to Terra it outside of its stabs, whilst Grafai can run much more and get potentially a lot more value.
Oh yeah, you can self-proc on Burden with normal, like stab normal gem. You can give it some actual coverage as well by going like Terra Fire or something. Like, you can make it into an offensive threat as well as just a support mon here.
Yeah. But I will say, like, the rest of this team, I just really like how a lot of the mons are quite difficult to predict. Like, Talonflame can be physical or special, same with Kingdra, same with Virizion, same with Frostlass. Dragonair I actually kind of rated as a low tier Terra. And like, I think that in terms of 1 point Terras, it probably was one of the better ones, if not the best one there. Just because, like, you can Dragon Dance with Eviolite and Terra normal extreme speed. Does mean that you're taking the Eviolite potentially away from Bishop, but Bishop doesn't always necessarily need it. It can run Choice Band.
Nah, it doesn't.
It can run like Assault Vest if you really just want to not have Eviolite.
It's fast enough to go Scarf as well with that base 70. It's not that slow.
For sure. And my one concern I think I had with this team when I was looking at it is similar to a lot of other teams, bit of a fairy weakness. Talonflame being one resist and Grafai the other, neither are particularly that bulky unless you specifically like invest into HP and special defense. But I don't think it matters too much when your offensive capabilities of taking out the fairies that are all relatively slow are as good as they are here, because Bishop Iron Heads are going to hurt. they're really going to hurt. Another thing I also liked is the fact that the pivots in this team pivot into each other really nicely. Like, Articuno brings in steel types like 99% of the time, which means you can go out to Talonflame, which means that you can then get them in a vortex between your two birds. Granted, you'll be boots on both because there are like, unless you're wanting to run defog on Talonflame, then you're very weak to rocks of those two. Also, like, Kingdra brings in water types, which Virizion absolutely loves. There was a lot of things that I liked about the pivoting on this. The only downside to, like, for me was really like the hazards, because like I said, Wigglytuff doesn't really ever really want to run it. Like, it wants to be a wish pass, and more so Golem is more so of a lead kind of trade rocks for your life sort of mon, and Bishop very rarely wants to run rocks, and with Terra Frostlass, spikes on want to go up. So realistically, you're playing a game without any hazards, and with all that pivoting around, that's the only downside to it, is that you're not going to rack up any potential chip. But otherwise, this team is really hard to prepare for. Lots of physical and special setup. It makes it really difficult to like predict the sets. Lots of potential wall breaking as well, with like Articuno just being as strong as it is, and Bishop being able to be like choice banded. Kingdra can be banned or specs and just flip turn, or Draco on your team. I really like this team. Outside of the Terra Frostlass needs to get in a bin.
I think the Terra caps are the one thing that stops this thing from being higher, honestly. Swap Frostlass for Grafai, that would be my... Like, I understand it's nice to have ghost spam, but you are not lacking in special offensive options with Kindred, Articuno Galar, even Virizion can be a special one with Calm Mind. Like, you're not lacking in that area, so you don't need the ghost spam. Yeah, it's probably fun. I know Tom says it seems like a ton of fun, and yeah, like everyone likes clicking the funny haha Terra Ghost Shadow Ball, but I just don't think it's needed. Like, Frostlass doesn't really need it as much, so yeah, yeah.
Poltergeist, yeah, but I also feel like Poltergeist is a bad move.
Yeah, and you can do that without terroring anyway. It's still going to hurt.
Yeah,
right?
I think you only really want to run Poltergeist on like a choice banded set anyway. So, like, yeah, triple axle, they're going to hurt, but they're going to hurt a little bit more. They can also just be fine without, and I think you get much more value as a whole with Grafia as a Terra Captain. There's a lot more expression to be had with that mon.
Yeah, it's more skill expression for sure.
And it allows Frostlass to just be that kind of, if you want it to be just a lead spiker, you're not using your like premier Terra Captain to set up spikes at the start.
Yeah.
And Destiny Bond, like, is, I know it can do more than that.
Yeah, it can still be like a mid-game offensive spiker. Like, it can be a mid-game physical or special breaker against the right team, but it doesn't need Terra to do that, you know?
You know what? If you Terra normal body slam, I respect it.
I respect it. Let's go.
Yeah. Right. We shall move on to my number 4. It's somebody we've already gone over on your side, and that is Style. Again, this very much, I think this team got bumped up by the fact that I just really like this defensive core. Like Snorlax, Palisand, Fortress, Vullaby, with potential Dashbun as well. I don't rate Dashbun particularly, but I really liked, like, Vullaby was a very good 1-point pick for this team. Palisand covers so many things for this team as well. Like, it's consistent rocker, consistent spin blocker, and also just pairs really nicely with Snorlax.
I don't like Palisand in high tier, but in low tier, I've looked at some damage calcs for it when I was doing my rankings, and I thought that thing just had, you know, it takes the hits you want it to, and it can self-recover as well. So, yeah, it's a very good solid ground and ghost for this level. So picking that up, I think you've done very well, especially considering it synergizes really well with some of the other stuff there.
And also, I think this is a very underrated offensive core as well, because Snorlax just naturally has pretty good offense. Inteleon is going to be difficult to check down here because there's not as many things that want to take the Scope Lens, Snipe Shot, Choice Specs, Hydro Pumps.
Oh, Lapras in it.
True. But then the things that do, there's a whole ass fucking Pawmot that is also going to hit really hard down here. So, like, I really like the combination of Inteleon, Pawmot, Minior. I think was overpriced. And again,
I was looking at it at one point.
It's a bit it's Shell Smash bait, but like it's a good Shell Smasher because it will outspeed most things at least once it gets the Shell Smash up, so you don't have to worry too much about Mirror Herbs. I do like Alolan Exeggutor. I'm obviously a fan. I agree that Arbok could be Swalot, but really, like, if you're getting a poison type and it's being a Terra Captain, there's no good options for 2-3 points, however many this was. So
I think Swalot's your only one that potentially could be okay.
Yeah, but again, like, you don't particularly want a Terra Swalot either. Like, the poison typing is so good this generation that and Fortress just does everything. Like, you can bring in Fortress and you have so many good fire switch-ins that it actually makes Fortress a real Pokemon.
Yeah, like Fortress can work on this draft, absolutely. Like the lower power level means it's actually going to be able to take a hit. You've got a Wish Passer that can actually support it. I know, granted, it's Dachshund, and I know you're not a massive fan of it, but
its HP is not particularly high. That's the only issue.
It's not beneath Fortresses, so you know, like it's still going to give it 50% back if you want to bring it back in. And I think that there's a real threat of Iron Press Fortress as well, especially with this lower power level, because not much is going to want to take a base 140 defense stat, you know.
Yeah, and I do really enjoy like their ability to pivot around with Inteleon, Pawmot, Fortress, and even Vullaby. Like, they all kind of pair quite nicely together in terms of like what wants to come in on certain things. Like, Fortress often just baits in fire types, Volt Switch that out, and hey, you got Inteleon in for free. So like there's a
Big,
lot
chunky damage dealer.
of good like combination of fast and slow pivots that pivot nicely into other mons on their team that definitely can take advantage of it. And the combination of Snorlax Palisand in terms of just trying to break through those two is going to be very difficult, especially because I'm a big Palisand enjoyer. Like I think it's just going to be like the MVP on this team because its roll compression for this team in particular is so good.
I'm not a fan of Palisand in high tier because its bulk isn't good enough for what it wants to do as its playstyle. In high tier, in low tier anyway, like in this specific context, I think it's going to be fucking awesome. I think it's going to do so much. Snorlax Palisand is a ridiculous defensive core, right?
Yeah. Like Snorlax by itself is a ridiculous defensive core because like not a lot breaks through that with this power level. You bring in your fighting types, and Palisand is something that can chew the coverage.
Yes. And I'll give credit, you've got an Intimidate Arbok as well that can switch into fighting moves. It's the only time I'll give it credit, but that's like the only
Let's go.
thing I can see.
Justice for snakes.
The only justice.
Who do you have number 4?
Right. Well, my number 4 is the Canadian legend himself, Mr. Zachmander, with the Canadian Sarah Ledges. That's my number 4. I really like this team.
Same.
I really fucking like this team.
The fact that this team has reached top 4 in both of our power rankings shows that this is a good team.
I've got my gripes with it. I think Sandslash, even with the low power level, is still an unmon. Sorry, Dave.
No, Dave even agrees at this point. That's how bad it's got.
Like, I think that could have been maybe 2 or 3 different ground types. I understand you probably wanted a second spinner, but you've got Noivern and Cryogonal.
There was no need for spin.
There was no need for an extra spin. I feel like I'd rather you have taken an Eviolite ground type, honestly, than taking that, because you haven't got any other Eviolite mons on the team.
Yeah.
I don't like Sandslash. I think it's a poor mon. However, that is the one sour note for me on this entire thing. Like,
yeah.
I adore this team. I really do. I think you've got brilliant speed tier coverage with Noivern into... I think it's Noivern into Cryogonal, which there is a bit of a gap there, but it's not as big of a gap when there aren't too many things that are going to be able to match Noivern's speed anyway, so you're mainly looking at 115s, right? And those, you know, they might be able to run the offensive stat, but I think the gap isn't big enough. So I think that Cryogonal, you know, I think those Terracaps as well, just to switch points. I think Cryogonal and Trevenant are 2 wonderful Terra Captains. Trevenant is such an underrated mon. Like, I know Matt freaking loves that mon, and I can see why. I had it in PPL, and it absolutely dominated when it came. It was
so
awesome.
Good.
It really is. But even like moving aside from that, you've got Chloritza and Noivern as great breakers. Glowbro can also be a breaker. I think you've got fucking Zangoose, who I think I mentioned to you pre-draft. I think that thing could go crazy in low tier because the power level is going to mean that Zangoose just clicks a move, gets a kill. Persimmon, very good fighting type. Incineroar, good fire dark. You know, it's got the pivoting potential. This team's just got a bit of everything, and it does it all well together.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree. Also, I don't know when it was drafted, but in the same tier as Sandslash was Golurk. And honestly, Golurk on this team would have gone just insane.
It would have gone dummy thick. It really would. Sandslash is the problem. Is the one problem with this team for me.
Yeah, I'm just having a quick look. I've actually taken the opportunity to see what is left on the board and whether or not there's a ground type that's worth switching out that Sandslash for.
Honestly, Hippopotas would have been a better swap. I think that's how low I rate it. Trapinch would have been a better swap.
I mean, of course, Trapinch is the GOAT.
Of course.
There's not really any other ground type, so Camerupt exists.
Yeah, I guess. Fucking Krokorok could have been okay. Gabite. I love myself some Gabite.
You do love Gabite? Like, there's not a lot else, really, in fairness, that could be picked up, and like Whiscash is also an option.
Right, but I can see AP and Matt are saying, you know, Sandslash it's okay. I'd like you to do some damage calcs with Sandslash and tell me how it does anything defensively and offensively. You know, it doesn't have the stats. It's being power crept to shit. You bring it as a rock switch in, and the offensive rock type does like 35% to it, and it's got no recovery, right?
Its bulk looks good on paper. It's not good.
65 110 is not that good. It's like people telling me that Rotom Heat is bulkier than Electros, and then you actually look at the calcs and they take the exact same damage from neutral hits, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it looks deceiving because the stat looks high, but when you don't have the HP alongside it, it just doesn't take the hit as well as you think it does.
I do believe Sandslash is the best option that was on the board. I will say that much. For 4 points, I think it was the best option.
Well, fucking plan better. I'm kidding. Yeah, it probably was the best option on the board. It still sucks. I'm sorry.
It is literally the only one on this team that is even like a question as to whether or not it's going to have use on the team. And even then, like, my only, like, I think the one thing I noted was that, hey, Volt Switch is kind of bad for you. But Terra Cryogonal into Terra Ground, you always going to get that Mamo coverage, and it's absolutely fine. So, like, if you need a Volt Switch in, you can just Terra Ground Cryogonal. It's going to be better than Sandslash. So, like, I don't think I can really take too much away, because, like, I think the overall value of this team is just really, really good.
Sorry, PP's just put the fucking Earthquake versus a Magnemite.
Checkmate, I guess.
That takes down 44. Is that 44 Magnemites? That's mad. That's wild.
But what if that Magnemite has an air balloon?
What if it's in the Sandstorm and it's that silly Magnemite Endeavor set that went viral?
True.
That's funny.
I will talk more on Zach's team when I get to it. And move on to my number 3, which is Tom. I played Tom week 1, so I don't want to give too much away. But this team is very, very solid. It's got, like, it ticks a lot of boxes. There's, outside of probably like Terra Clefairy, maybe Ambipom because I don't like it, but it feels a speed tier. There's, like, I don't see many holes in this team. Defensively, really solid. One of the better defensive teams, albeit lacking a bit in recovery. I think you've got, like, just enough bulk that it doesn't tend to matter too much. And yeah, there's so many things on this team that are going to be a problem, like Zoroark, Flamigo. Like, even those two combined, like Zoroark being disguised as Flamigo, can just immediately screw over a team, because you switch in your Flamigo check and get Specs Dark Pulse or whatever. Dragalge calcs are just stupid.
Oh yeah, like, I never even considered the idea of a physical Dragalge until I started prepping for a game. I think it was back in PBA a couple of seasons ago when I had Dragalge, and my god, Gunk Shot on the physical side hits just as hard, if not harder, than Sludge Bomb. It's crazy. That thing is silly.
Yeah, like, it's a very diverse Pokemon, because it can also be like subtoxic, it can be toxic spikes, it can be just a pivot, it can do so much, and one of the best mons on the board in my opinion. Bronzong, just an annoying mon to deal with. And then there's just a whole bunch of good pivots, like Dragalge is a good slow pivot, Zoroark, Flamigo, Lantern are all good pivots, because you don't want to switch in your ground type too much on Lantern. It also gets flip turn, so even if you do switch in your ground type, it could have flip turn. It's very difficult to predict that. And Clefairy is a good slow baton passer, so there's a lot to like about this team. I think we went over Tom's team in quite a bit of detail when we were on your side, so
yeah,
won't spend too long on it. But yeah, I thought this was just one of the best teams. And it's not just because I was planning for it for week 1 and realised how good it was in terms of how difficult it is to break down and also to check.
Very valid.
But there's just a nice combination of fast mons that hit relatively hard, slow mons that hit really fucking hard, and then good bulk that allows those mons to thrive.
Absolutely, yeah. Hope you enjoyed your little can opening ritual there. Don't know if you heard that on the stream.
I didn't actually.
Oh, well, they wouldn't have heard it. Anyway,
Your
moving
number 3.
on to my number 3, which I believe you've already covered. I put BP here.
That's very fair.
And I think that we spoke quite in depth about why this is, a good team. At least why I think it's a good team anyway. I think, third is probably where it deserves to be if the Terrors were slightly better. I may be overvaluing slightly, but I really like this team. I think it's got a bit of everything. It breaks on both sides. It's got bulk on both sides. I think Wigglytuff is a very underrated low-tier cleric. It's going to take hits way better than if you're trying to use it in high tier. I just think that there's a lot to love about this team. I don't think there's a single bad pick. Maybe the Dragonair, but it's an okay one. It's a 1-point Terra Cap. It's going to do what 1-point Terra Caps do. I don't think there's a bad pick on this entire draft. I think it's got a bit of everything. The lowest I've given it is for removal at 4.5, and that's because you're relying on Talonflame.
Yeah.
But even then, it's the most reliable defogger on the board, right? So
I would say Noivern is the most reliable, just because the one issue I had is this team is fairly knockoff weak. And
you're right. But,
and Talonflame doesn't want to switch
between the two, right?
Yeah, it's definitely
it's between the two. So, you've got very solid removal. Your hazards not the best, as we went over before, but you do have options to get them up, and you've got several options to get spikes up. Well, not spikes, stealth rock. Yeah, I just think it's really good. I really like this team. I think you did very well considering the constraints. Obviously, we've got our criticisms, but I genuinely really like this team. Also, your logo's fucking fire.
It is, yeah. I mean, both the logos that are on screen at the moment, both look fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Big fan.
Absolutely smashed it.
The logos for this league, I remember the days where you join a league and you go to the logos and you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
All the logos are solid here. We did, yeah.
In the council, whenever we had a new league, we'd go through and we'd be like, what the fuck is this? There's not a single logo that's less than a 7.5 out of 10 for me. All the logos in this league are so clean.
Shall we move on to our number 2s?
We shall.
Number 2.
Number 2.
I had Zach.
You had Zach.
This team is just... We've already said, this team is so good. One of the things I really enjoyed about it is, there is no bad point. / maybe the lowest point on that. But, it gives you hazards. It does give you another spin option should you not want to run spin on, Cryogonal or Defog on Noivern. Completely fair. One of the things I really, really enjoyed about this team is the Trick Room mode with Diancie, Glowbro, Trevenant. That could potentially go really hard. Clawitzer is a fantastic Pokemon. Why it keeps getting put so low, especially in a low tier league, beyond me.
Trust me. I respect the fact that they didn't allow it to Terra, because Terra Clawitzer is stupid. So I think, this thing is an 8-9 pointer, honestly. It's so good. It's surprisingly bulky. It's got so much breaking potential. It's just a really good mon. And I think as your bulky water, you might struggle with your lack of wish, but it can still at least take a hit and flip on out, or take a hit and kill something in response,
And also, there's so many mons on this team that have pivoting options, and they're good mons with good pivoting options. Diancie can set up a Trick Room and then Baton Pass. Noivern U-turn, Incineroar U-turn and Parting Shot, Persimmon U-turn, Clawitzer U-turn or Flip Turn. All of them have that capability of bringing in something like Zangoose that, realistically, what's switching in on Zangoose outside of a ghost type, and they don't predict.
Yeah, it's just a very, very well put together team. Honestly, could have been number 2 for me. Could have been anywhere in the top 6. Zach's team is wonderful.
Yeah, this was incredibly close to being number 1.
Yes, I think so. I will just quickly say, Naito will probably talk about your transactions at the end, because we're very close to the end. I believe there's 3 of them, so we will get to them. We're just going to finish off this first. I'm just going to talk about why I put Pup at number 2 for one, just before we move on to the number 1. I put Pup at number 2 mainly because I just rated the mons that you didn't rate more than you did. That's And that's the really interesting thing about PRs, right? You've got two people that view the game very similarly, but because their opinion on certain Pokemon is slightly different, you know, it leads to wildly different things. So all of the points that, you know, Amber raised about Pup's team previously, I think they're all valid. I just think that Bombardier, Hitmontop, and Dugtrio are going to do a little bit more than Amber doesn't. So, yeah, it's one of those things, right? It's the beauty of Draft League. It's why we play and we all interact in this fandom, right?
Sorry, I was just very quickly looking at the transactions so I can put them on the dock. Whilst you were talking, I was not quick enough.
Damn. I can give another speech if you want.
Continue your speaking, please.
Well, so, have you ever considered why bees can actually get off the ground, right? According to the laws of aviation. But yeah, I think that, like, I'd like to stress again, like, all of the teams are fine, right? There's not a single really bad team, and the ones that we do have, like, more issues with than the others, they're a little bit constrained by the rules of the league, right? Like, the rules of the league were really fun to have to work around. I really enjoyed having to think about, I can't just grab a bunch of Eviolite Mons because I'm only allowed to bring one to each game. That's pretty cool, right? And the fact that the whole Terra thing meant that if you want one of the quote-unquote better Terra captains, you then have to take a 1-pointer alongside it. So, yeah, it's been a very fun draft, I'll say that. This is one of my first low-tier drafts, and it's been really interesting to try and get my head around it. So, yeah, I think everyone's done really, really good.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm almost done putting in the transactions. So,
God damn it, I've got no more in me!
What's the... Oh, okay, yeah, I'm fumbling. I'm fumbling real bad.
You're fumbling. She's fumbling, chat.
Okay. That's an electric, not an Electros. Good job, B. Thanks, me. I mean, we could probably just move on to number one at this point, and this is going to be quite embarrassing for myself.
It is going to be a bit embarrassing. Are you ready?
Let me just not talk.
Right, so we both went for Amber as our number one pick, right? And it was really interesting seeing the difference between how the PRs last night for VDL, you know, the ones that were done by Common Boy and Poncho, I believe it was. It was really interesting seeing the difference in rating between, you know, yours for them and for us. So you were obviously rated at number 14 in that one, which, and it's interesting because the points that they raised were very valid, right? They talked about how the defense, you know, it looks a little bit thin on paper, but then when you actually dive deeper into it, you look at the likes of, you've got Rhyperior, a Chesnaught, a Terra Scyther that's probably going to be running Eviolite every week. You've got base 130 Sylveon passing wishes into everything, or just boom bursting. Like, on the offensive side, what's switching into a Spathra?
I wish Sylveon got boom burst.
Sorry, not boom. I meant from Toxtricity, my bad.
Yeah. Can you imagine, though? That would be disgusting.
Yeah. Hyper voice. Yeah, there we go. That would be disgusting. To boom burst Sylveon, yuck. Yeah, you've got nothing is switching into Sylveon. Like, barely anything is taking a hit from that thing. That thing is just blasting through everything. And the things that do, Espathra, Rhyperior, Chesnaught, Toxtricity, Scyther, and Houndoom are all absolutely murking it. This team is so offensively powerful. I believe the lowest attack stat is Dracloak. And the one after that is fucking Sylveon. And then everything else is just really, really decent, right? Even Toxtricity has like a base 95 attack stat, and you can run Shift Gear with it. So it's got very good setup options with, you've got Bulk Up Chesnaught, Bulk Up Ursaring, Swords Dance Rhyperior, Calm Mind Sylveon, Shell Smash Cloyster, Shift Gear Toxtricity, Calm Mind Espathra, Dragon Dance Dracloak, Swords Dance Scyther. Everything has very meaningful, relevant setup, right? The speed tiers are where it falls down a little bit for me, because your fastest thing is a base 106, right?
105 Scyther and Espathra.
Yeah, so you've got two base 105s. So you are struggling a little bit on that front. So that could be where some of the faster teams are able to exploit you a little bit. However, you've also got, you know, some interesting speed setup with like shift gear, shell smash. You've got Espathra, which is a pretty decent scarfer. You've got some good scarf options as well with the likes of Scyther, Toxtricity, Espathra. Houndoom can be an okay scarfer in a pinch. And I think people underestimate the usage of Ursaring as well, because we're talking about Sandslash earlier, right? And how Sandslash, you know, doesn't take hits. It's got deceptive bulk, deceptively low. Ursaring has deceptively high bulk, even without the Eviolite, because it's got base like... I'm going to have to look up the actual numbers. But
90, 70, 70, I think?
Yeah, it's like 90, 75, 75. That thing actually takes hits on the physical side about the same, if not better than Sandslash, before even considering the Eviolite boost, right? So that thing is just going to come in, trade 1-for-1, and be able to completely just shut down certain teams. It's a very good anti-ghost mon, and whenever it gets in, it's got base 130 attack stat, and it's got fucking guts, so you can run Rest Talk bulk up with normal move, and things that don't have good ghost types are going to lose mono to that thing. It's such a good lower tier value pick. My criticism, maybe you could have made it Terra Captain. Understand why it didn't get Terra Captain, because you've got Scyther there, who's awesome, and you know, Houndoom was just the only one that really fit. And I think Houndoom's going to be interesting as well for the games where Scyther doesn't quite have the best matchup. But yeah, like, it's really good offense, deceptively good defense, great clericking, because everything here has the ability to, you know, receive massive wishes from Sylveon. Your removal, yeah, it's Scyther. It's okay. Especially with being terrored into like a steel type, so it resists the Stealth Rocks anyway. It is your only defogger, which does let you down a little bit, but as I say, it's going to be terroring into a type that potentially doesn't really care about the Stealth Rocks itself, so it can run the defog effectively. So yeah, for me, like, you'll see the difference between 77.5, which was my number 1, and my number 2, which was Pop, 76. So there was a little bit of a gap between it. It just ticked more boxes for me. So yeah, I'll take my money for the Rizzing Up session here, and we'll call it a day.
What did Leo put in the chat that got retracted?
Wait, did Leo put something in the chat? I didn't see
two messages have been message retracted.
Leo's put, I'm bringing 6 Mirror Herb moms. That's the only thing I could see from Leo. What did you put, Leo?
If I take a second to just go over my team, where is your switching, firstly?
To anything.
Like, half my team is just powerful. I've got, like, good hazard setters. They're not exactly, like, plentiful on my team, but they're all solid. And also, I don't have a steel type, but both my Terra Captains are absolutely fine being steel type.
Mm-hmm.
Or poison type in Houndoom's case as well. So if I need a fairy switch in that's not Toxtricity, then yeah, in a pinch I can just Terra one of those. Also, Scyther should not have been allowed to Terra. Or Ursaring.
I don't think it should. Ursaring, yeah, both of those are kind of ridiculous. And I think the only criticism I've got is that you haven't got Terra Ursaring, because, you know, Terra Scyther is ridiculous, but Terra Ursaring is also just as ridiculous in my eyes.
It was tough. Like, I did draft Ursaring as my Terra Captain, and then saw Scyther, and was like, you know what? Scyther maybe just needs it a bit more. So
yeah,
that's why it's Terra Captain.
I can see it. Especially considering you need Scyther to be your sole hazard removal as well, at least for the moment. So yeah, probably needs the Terra Steel, the Terra Ground, whatever it is, a little bit more. So yeah, I think that's why I've got Amber at number 1.
I was gonna say, like, I didn't want to be number 1 in my own, but it was just the numbers added up. A lot of mine is just numbers. I was like, shit, why am I number 1? I don't want to be number 1. So
it makes you feel like you're being like up your own arse a little bit, right?
Yeah, like, I know this team's got weaknesses, but it's just the fact that, like,
BP. Oh, the numbers, huh?
The numbers, Mason.
The numbers, Mason. Oh,
but,
fucking
Yeah, I think every team has got weaknesses, and I think some people try to maybe patch up weaknesses with low tier mons that aren't going to make much of a difference. I don't think Dracloak is going to make a massive amount of difference, in fairness, but
no,
it's
there.
Most
it's usable. It's a fast status mon.
The one thing I went for is like where I saw value, I went with the value over a top tier. Like Sylveon was 10, Earthring was 4, Toxtricity I think was 9, and Chestnut was 7, Slifer was 4. So
yeah.
Like the overall BST, I'm pretty sure my team is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it was like 20 points higher than like one of the other ones I remember looking at.
Not
like,
that matters at all.
No, of course not. No, I mean, 20. Having base 80 over base 60 isn't going to matter when you're 4 times weak to a move, right? So it doesn't make any difference. But like, yeah, it's a very good team. I really like it.
I could see why this team wouldn't be top as well because of the weaknesses that it has. I do understand that. I just think that there's too much breaking power on this team to be too concerned.
Yeah, this team can very easily just play wall break into setup. Same as Matt's, which is really interesting to see because obviously we rated Matt's last because of being able to have that, that play style. But I just think this facilitates it in a way that doesn't leave itself open to other moves as easily, right? I really think that this team covers itself quite well. And yeah, some of the value in the lower tiers was, honestly, they were better than some of the higher tier mons, right? Some of the higher tiers that were there were very pigeonholed type mons like Galvantula, which unfortunately I did have to pick up. But, I think some of the lower tiers there were where the value were, and you really prioritized that well.
Yeah. Also, Specs Hyper Voice. How many teams have we said this team doesn't have a great fairy switching?
Exactly.
I ironically don't have one myself, but
there's Toxtricity. It's going to be AV every week.
So true.
Yeah, there's our power rankings, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed. This has been very strange. Obviously, we'll get to Nita's transactions in a second as well because it'd be
yes, I have put them on the dock. So
yes.
There was 2. There was Nitor and AP have made trades.
Oh, okay. AP. I haven't seen APs. So let's start with Nitas, and we'll get to.
I mean, we could put both on the screen.
Okay, cool. Have you edited my doc as well?
No further questions.
Fuck. God damn it.
Yeah, so
I should be able to
we'll go Nitor first because their drops influence the other drops. And I do think that these drops are good.
I think we'll keep both. We'll keep mine the same so we can see the before and after,
Yeah, that works.
Cool.
Hooper was a little bit overpriced. But
it was.
If getting Electros, I understand why you dropped Rotom Heat. Pyroar is a good Terra Captain as well. I really do like... Yes. I really do like Pyroar as Terra Cap.
I will say I have been speaking to Nita a little bit about these transactions, and these were 3 that I recommended to them. I think that this immediately makes the team a little bit more threatening because Terra Pyroar is very underrated, as you say. It hits so ridiculously hard, way harder than people think it does, and it's also deceptively fast. It fills a speed tier for Nita here as well. It sits right in between Yan Mega and Sneasel, which I really like because it fills a complete gap in there. And I think there's more synergy with Hooper and Umbreon than we think, because Hooper, of course, is like deathly afraid of any kind of dark moves. Umbreon typically doesn't really care about knockoffs, so you can switch them in fairly nicely, and you can baton pass slow wishes into a Hooper that's got a base 150 special attack stat and absolutely murder things. I think Hooper over Haunter really is a no-brainer. You've still got your Toxic Spike Absorber in the Sneasel, so I like this a lot more now.
It's a massive improvement. Like, yes, it's lacking a little bit more in the pivot department. Actually, not really, because Electros for Rotom Heat, nothing else pivoted anyway. So it's a side grade in that sense. but I think Electros is a more consistent pivot than Rotom is. Hooper, like you said, Umbreon is a perfect partner for Hooper because it just chews the Ghost and Dark type moves that are absolutely coming Hooper's wave. And even the Pyroar, even the Pyroar is an upgrade. Like in terms of having that second Ghost resist or a Ghost resist, I won't count Chinchino. It's definitely I like where he's gone with this team.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying looking at like the actual stats of it now, looking at the context of everything. I think it looks very good now. So yeah, good job.
And because Rotom Heat got dropped, AP picked up Rotom Heat.
Yeah,
and I think it works. It works for this team. They did drop the Floatzel and Ninetales. So losing a bit of speed, but gaining a bit of utility, I think that's absolutely what this team needed. Quaxwell is fine. Is 1 point for a spinner, and a little bit underrated with the ability to spin into get a Moxie boost. It's not quite Quack, unfortunately. It does lack a few things that Quack has. But still, it has the triple axle coverage, gives you a spinner, relatively good water fucking stab with flip turn, and I couldn't think of the word of stab. That's we talking too long. Water stab with flip turn liquidation, like Aqua Jet as well. It's got enough to be worth that 1 point.
Yeah, I think the added bulk that Rotom Heat gives you here as well. It's not the bulkiest thing in the world, but it does give you a little bit of a, you switch in, pivot out into one of your big hitters, right? And we talk about Quaxwell. It's still a Quaxwell, right? It's not there to be the star of the show, but it will have matchups where that bulky water is going to do quite a lot.
Also, just I was about to say, is Quaxwell 1 point? Because then you could go Terra Primate, Terra Quaxwell, and I think that is an upgrade as well.
And I think they've just put in
the chat. They've just put it in the chat, like as I went to say
it.
That's
what they're planning. Yeah, that's what they're planning. So yeah, that's going to change the dynamic quite severely as well.
Yeah, I think this team is definitely upgraded.
Yeah, both of the trades have been wonderful. For both of these teams, they've both really added different dimensions and versatility to the team that they were lacking otherwise.
I think Raichu probably also goes. If I had to guess, that would be the next thing, because you've got the Rotom Heat now. You don't need Raichu. It doesn't fill too many niches that likes of Rotom can't fill themselves. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something else instead of Raichu. I don't know what's available that's even worth it for however much Raichu was. But Chomeko doesn't need Terra. It's a good Terra captain, but it doesn't need it. It's still going to be able to function just fine in the role it's in. So, I would definitely like Terra Primate, Terra Quaxwell, because Quaxwell lacks a little bit of coverage. So just being able to potentially have that coverage will be very helpful.
Yeah.
In the one game, potentially, with Terra.
But it's definitely got the potential to show up to a game, It's absolutely got the ability to do that. So it's definitely a usable Terra Cap. Primeape and Quaxwell, both physical, but they both do different things. So one's a bulky, a bulky win con that does what Annihilate Junior does. The other goes fast and outspeeds you. So yeah, good little juxtaposition between the two of them.
Also, apparently Raichu and Chomeko are going. Firstly, Coward for dropping Chomeko.
How dare you?
For Honchkrow and a 2-pointer.
Honchkrow on fraud watch for me, but I can see how it might do some work here with a scarf set in a lower tier context. So
banded or just boots as well works just fine.
Could be okay.
I think one thing it was definitely lacking. I gave priority a 3 out of 10. It was definitely
punch does. Yeah.
It adds that. So they're definitely not the worst.
No, absolutely.
Though low dropping Chomeko is actually just unbelievable.
In fact,
I think
you go down to 6. You go down to 16 just for that. It's just not good enough,
But yeah, I think those transactions that have been made definitely improved the teams.
Good job both.
Good transactions.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I guess that has been your power rankings. You've got 2 sets of very different power rankings, both of them valid in their own rights. and it's cool to see people's different
hang on.
takes on the game. So, yeah.
I thought it was another trade, but no. I think the BP is just saying that they are absolutely keeping Terra Frost last. So to re-rate the team, you're now last. Sorry, I don't make the rules.
Oh, fair enough. Right. I want to see Terra Frost last be kill leader, right? And if you click spikes with it even once this season, you're a coward. Coward. It's gonna be full send it.
Spikes is fine. If it clicks Will-O-Wisp or Destiny Bond, then there's coward.
You know what? Valid.
But
yeah, thank you very much for staying along with us. This was
yes, that was a lot longer stream than I thought it was going to be. But I guess 16 coaches, it'd be like that. But we've had just over. I mean, we're at 69. But when I started that sentence, we were at 69 overall views on this video, on a stream. Unfortunately, we have now passed that. So
damn.
Devastating. We need to wrap it up quicker. But yeah, thank you all for coming out. It's been a good time, and I'm sorry for putting myself first. I feel real bad. I do. I deserve to go 0 whatever now for that.
Jesus. But yeah, I think we've done a good job. So yeah, thanks for coming out, guys, and yeah, we'll see you in the battles.
Indeed. GN.
GN.